Welcome back to Manor Park Classics. Tonight we have an evening of class, elegance and luxury, and even more in our evening platinum sale. So as the Northwest's only fixed venue auction house, this allows us to offer extended viewing, no rush 1 week collection, and allows you to really show off your vehicles. We can really get them advertised and promoted on social medias. The earlier you get them here, the better for everyone. Facilities today, we have the toilets through the back down to the left. We have a coffee van over here. We have a bar at the back as well. So please do use those facilities if they're needed. Today, fire safety, it's not a drill. So if the fire happens today, please leave at your nearest fire exit and we assemble out of the front gate. So we'll make sure everyone's accounted for out in the front gates. Today's terms and conditions and premiums, the bikes is 15% plus VAT, minimum to a subject of £300 plus VAT. The cars are 12.5% plus VAT, minimum subject to £600 plus VAT. And also the plates today are 15% plus VAT, minimum to £50 plus VAT. For removals, we offer 1 week's free storage. After that, it's £10 per day per lot thereafter. We are also filming today, so we're live on YouTube, so welcome to you on YouTube, and we are also live on our platform, www.manorparkclassics.com, where you can bid on today's auction. We operate today with a provisional bidding system, so sometimes the hammer may not get down. We may say that this is a provisional bid, so it goes over to the sales team then, and they look to get the results back during the live sale, and we'll work through that until Friday. So we look to promote the results on Friday then for all of you guys. We also offer with the free stage sales process as well. So as soon as your car is here, ladies and gentlemen, it is on sale from the word go. So as soon as it arrives, we get pictures online. People can make offers before. It's up to the seller what they do to it. If they wish to sell it before, they want to run it through the auction, then we do the auction, and we also have the provisional bids as well. So it can be sold before, after, or in the auction. Today's auction partners are Kingfisher Insurance Group. We also have Fast and Funded for all your finance needs. And if you need some storage, we also have KTL Car Storage. Also, not forgetting our newest partner joining us is the Motorist as well. So we got the Motorist on board now as well. And just a massive personal message from us all at Manor Park to one of our colleagues, George. We know you're watching, so we're all thinking about you. We hope you get well soon, and we cannot wait to see you back here at our Northwest venue. Right then, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, lot number one. When I mention the free stage sale process, this is one that is gone already. The Aston Martin here, the 2001 DB7 Vantage, sold prior to the auction. Then we're going to move our way down to lot number two. And lot number two is this lovely 1992 Ducati 888 Corsa. And what better person to introduce this one than our very own Steve Berry?
A very special motorcycle. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, the 888 Corsa, not to be confused with the 888 SP4. This is not a road bike. This is the race bike. They made around 30. 3 of them made their way to the UK. One was raced by Trevor Nation, who, of course, made his name really on the Norton Rotaries, but did race one of these. The other was raced by Blackburn's own, the Blackburn Bullet. They call this the Bologna Bullet, and he was the Blackburn Bullet, King Carl Fogarty. But this one was raced by a very special Yorkshireman, a man I was privileged to know, and a man who had a character as big as his physical frame, David Jeffries. There's a picture of David on what looks like the mountain at Cadwell Park there. This is a unique piece of both Italian and British motorcycle racing history. Don't confuse it with the homologation road bike. This is a different beast entirely. This is the racer. They only made 30. 3 made it to the UK, and David Jeffries raced this very special Ducati, I'll say it, motorcycle.
Very special, and it looks absolutely brilliant, gleaming there under the lights, as you can all see. Beautiful bike then, and we're going to start here. Got several commission bids on my book. I'm going to go straight in at 15,000, 16, and 17,000 pounds. We start at 17,000. It's frozen. It's not a good start. At 17,000 pounds. At 17,000, 17,000. At 17,000 pounds. Just bear with us a second online. I can't even see the mouse here. At 17,000 pounds. At 17,000, 17,000. At £17,000 is the bid with me at the minute on the commission bit. Just bear with us a second. Laptop's decided to play up. There we go. Cancel that. 17,000 is bid. You're in at 15. Let's run it up. 16, 17,000. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. First lot there. Had a little bit. At 17,000 is my commission bid. You're in at 15 online, but we're at 17,000. I'll take 18,000 if you wish to come in now. At 17,000 is the bid. At 17,000, 17,000. At 17,000, 18,000 is bid now at 18. At 18,000 pounds. At 18,000, 18,000. Would you like to come in for 19? At 18,000 is the bid at the minute. At 18,000 pounds. At 18,000, 18,000. 19 is in online now at 19,000. Welcome with you in Florida, in the USA at 19,000 pounds. Back to me at 20. 20's bid. At 20,000 now. At 20,000, 20,000. Would anyone like to come in for one? At 20,000 is the bid. At 20,000 pounds is the bid here then at 20,000 pounds. Would anyone else like to come in for another one? At 20,000, 20,000 is your bid at the minute online. 21 is bid now at 21. Back to the USA at 21,000 pounds. At 21,000. At 21, 21. Would anyone else like to come in for 22,000 pounds? 22 is bid now at 22. At 22,000 pounds is the bid online. At 22,000. My commission interest is out now at 22,000 pounds with the online bid here. At 22. At 22,000 pounds is the bid now at 22,000. Would you like to come in for one more? 23. At 22,000 pounds is here then. Are we finished and done? 23. We're not done there. Thank you online. You're back in the USA at 23,000 pounds is the bid now at 23,000. At 23,000, 23. At 23,000 pounds, are we finished and done then with you in America at the minute? At 23,000 pounds. At 23, I'll tell you what, I'll take 23.5 if it helps you out underbid at 24. They say no need to worry. 24's bid. At 24,000 pounds. At 24, 24. At 24,000 pounds is the bid here online. At 24,000. At 24, 24. We'll take the 500s now if we can. Would you like to come in for a half online again? At 24,000 pounds, it's here at the minute in the United Kingdom is with you at 24,000 pounds. At 24,000. At 24, 24. Are we finished and done? Would you like to come back in for one more online? You're thinking about it now. American bidder, would you like to go again? At 24,000 pounds, or anyone else in the room would like to come in now at 24, 24.5. At 24,500 pounds is bid. At 24,005. At 24,500 is the bid now at 24.5. At 24,500 we are bid. At 24,500 pounds at the minute here in the USA, it's with you at 24,005. Underbidder, would you like to come back in for 25,000 pounds? At 24,005. Are we finished and done then? At 24,500, I'll count you down now. At 24,500 is the bid for the first time then. At 24,500 for the second time. Finished and done at 24,500 pounds. Provisionally with you online at 24.5, and that's 18,595 there. That is provisionally with you online. That is a provisional bid there. And over to Steve Berry to introduce this lovely 1988 Porsche 911.
Yes, it's an 80s icon. I can only think of a couple of things that were better looking in the 80s than one of these. One of them was Yasmin Le Bon. I won't mention the other, but she went to school with me and she was a page 3 girl. Anyway, this one is the 3.2 Sport Cabriolet 911, the classic flat 6 engine with 230 brake horsepower. But because this is the Sport Cabriolet, you get the Bilstein shocks, you get the Fuchs alloy wheels, you get these fantastic sports seats. Is this the best color combination? You don't ask yourself, because you know that this is the best color combination. Black leather seats and an impeccable, unmarked, fantastic guards red interior. And again, we're talking 80s icons. Does it get any better than the outrageous, ubiquitous whale tail? This car with under 70,000 miles in 37 years, I was going to say 27, it's 37. It's got the lot, Tom.
Right then, look at it here then. We're going to start the bidding off here. I've got several commission bids with me. I'm going to go straight in. 18,000, 19,000 pounds we start, and 20,000 is bid. At 20,000, I'll take one. At 21. At 21,000 is the bid now at 21. 22, back to my commission bidder now at 22,000. At 22, 22. At 22, 23's back in. At 23, 24, I'm going to go 25,000 with my commission bidder now at 25. 26 if you wish to come back in. At 25,000 is the bid. At 26, my commission interest is out now at £26,000. It's with you online. At £26,000 is the bid here online at the minute at 26. Would anyone else like to come in for 27,000? At 26,000 is the bid here online. At 26. At 26,000 coming back in for 27 underbidder. Would you like to go again? At £26,000. At 26. At 26,000 is here. 27,000, I see you. At £27,000. At 27,027. At £27,000 is the bid now at 27. Would anyone like to come in for £28,000? At 27 is bid. At 27. At 27,000 is the bid now at 27. Online, I'll take 500s from this point if you wish to go again. 28,000's bid. At 28,000 is the bid now at 28. Coming back in for another 5. At 28,000 is the bid here at £28,000. At 28,000. I'll take 500 if anyone else wishes to come in now. The bid is here online at the minute at £28,000. We're a bid. At 28. At £28,000 now at 28,000 is the bidder with you online. At 28,000, would you like to come in for 28.5? Are we finished and done here with the online bid at the minute at £28,000? I'll count you down. 28.5. Thank you. New bidder there. In Durham is with you at 28,005. At 28.5. At 28,500 is the bid here at 28,005. At 28,500 at the minute online, the bid is here. At 28.5. Would anyone else like to come in for one more 29? At 28,500, are we finished and done then? At 28,500, we're going to start counting you down online. At 28,500, it goes once. At 28,500, it goes twice. We're finished. We're done with the online bid then at £28,500 finished and done. Your bid provisionally online at 28,500. And we're going to move on down this time to lot number 4. Is the 1989. It's the Ferrari 328 GTS Italian mid-engine. And we're going to go over to Steve.
Tom, if it was the late 80s and you made some brass or you weren't in the market for a 911 Porsche, then perhaps you'd appreciate this car a little bit more. I have to admit, it is a beautiful thing. 1989 Ferrari 328 GTS. In, again, as with the Porsche, the most desirable color combination, Rosso, Corsa, and Crema leather. Of course, we've got the best looking wheel ever fitted to a car, in my humble opinion. The 5-spoke alloy, I think it was Cromodora who made these wheels. I may be wrong, you could put me right, but what you can't put me right on is the quality of this car. I was looking at the place names and its history. Made in Modena, sold new in South Kensington. It then moved on to spend the rest of its life in Wilmslow and Alderley Edge here in leafy Cheshire. This car has led a pampered, privileged life. It presents in absolutely superb condition with low mileage. And of course, it's got that thing that all the millennials want, an exposed gated change. The clack of that gear stick as it goes into the right gear and you balance the revs and the engine speed is absolutely one of the most satisfying things you can ever do in a motor car with your clothes on, Tom.
Right then, right. We've got a bid on my book. It's a little bit low, so I'm going to ask for £30,000 to start me off on this one if we can. £30,000 to start if you wish to come in. If not, I'll go back to my commission bid and we'll start there. At 30,000 to come in. Anyone interested here? All right, we'll go with my commission bidder now at £20,000. At 20,000 is bid on the book. At 20,000, 20,000 is here. At £20,000. At 20,000 is the bid. Is that 25? 25,000 will take it. Thank you online. At 25,000 is your bid. My commission interest is out. 26,000 new bidder. At 26,000 is bid. At 26,000, 27. Thank you there online. At £27,000 is the bid at the minute. At 27, 28. At £28,000 is with you in Kent. At 28, 29 against you now. At £29,000, 30,000 is bid. At 30,000, 30,000. At 30,000, coming in for 1. At 30,000, 30,000. The bid is here with you online. At £30,000. At 30,000, 31 telephone bidders in before you online, unfortunately. At £31,000, we're on the telephone. At £31,000. At 31,000 is the bid now at 31. Would you like to come back in for 32? At 32,000 now against you on the telephone. At 32,000 online bidder, you're back in at 32. At £32,000 is the bid now at 32,000. At 32,000, 32. At £32,000 is the bid here then at 32. 33, Tim's telephone, you're back in at £33,000. 34, fast bidding there online. I think is a new bidder entirely at £34,000. At 34, 35. At 35,000, another new bidder in Wales this time at £35,000. The bid is with you. At £35,000, we are bid. At 35,000. 36. At 36,000 is the bid. At £36,000 with you online. At 36,000. 37 it goes on. Thank you again online. At 37,000 is the bid now at 37. At £37,000 we are bid. Underbidder, would you like to go 38,000? At £37,000 is here. 38, yes please, they say at £38,000. North Yorkshire, another new bidder. Welcome to the party at 38,000. The bid is with you at £38,000. At 38,000. At 38,000 pounds, we are bid now at 38. I'll take 39 if you're coming back in anywhere on the telephones or online. At 38,000 pounds, left-handed with the online bidder now. At 38,000. At 38,000, I'll take 500 if it helps anyone out. We'll half the bid for the first time then. At 28,000 pounds, we'll take the 500s now. 38,500s here. At 38,500, gentleman's bid in the room at 38,500. Thank you, sir. At 38,500. At 38,500, the next bid's 39 if you're coming back in. They say yes, please, again. At 39,000, North Yorkshire bid. 39,500, gentleman's back in. At 39,500 pounds. At 39,540's bid now 40,000 and 5 again 40,500. Thank you, sir. At 40,500 pounds, we're bid 41, 41,500. We'll stay in the 500s now at 41,500 with you, sir. At 41,500 pounds is the bid. At 41,500 here then, coming back in online. Gentleman's bid online 42. At 42,500. Thank you, sir. At 42,500. At 42,500 and 43's bid. At 43,000, North Yorkshire bidder, you're in at £43,000 now. I'll take 500 from anyone else if you wish to come back in. At £43,000, the bid is online. At 43,000 now, 43. At 43,000, would anyone like to come in for another 5? Are we finished and done? Are you sure, sir? One more? Thank you. 43,500. Gentleman's bid down the front now at 43,500. Online, would you like to go 44? You're thinking about it. Gentleman's bid here then at 43,500. Are we finished and done? At 43,500, 44, they're back in. Unlucky, sir. Sorry about that. At £44,000 here online. At £44,000 is the bid now with you online. At £44,000. Are we finished and done then? On the Ferrari 328 GTS here at £44,000. I'm going to start counting you down online. At £44,000, it goes once. At £44,000, it goes twice. Third and final time then at £44,000. We're finished and done at 44,000. With you online, provisionally just, I'm sure we'll get a deal done for you on that one before the end of the day there. At £44,000, that is your bid online. That is provisionally with you then. And we're going to go down to lot number 5. This time is the 2011 BMW 1 Series M Coupe. Have a good look at this one. And over to you, Steve.
Tom, we always have things to surprise and mystify me, but that's not too difficult. I don't know, for instance, how a car like this ends up being 14 years old. Yes, it is. And with almost 80,000 miles on the clock, but seemingly in as brand new condition. Now, the 1 Coupe was kind of the greatest hits of BMW back then. You've got all kinds of parts from the M3, like the limited slip diff, the brakes, the suspension and all that. And you've got the engine from the Z4, but with the all-important addition of twin turbos, notching it up to around 335 brake horsepower. As you all know, BMW love to charge you for extras. But whoever was ticking the boxes on this one had a bit of a mad do. They specified special heated, electrically adjustable seats, privacy glass, folding mirrors, and if we could show you this, these very saucy Acropovic exhaust, which are switchable. Tom, when you want to be quiet, you can be quiet. When you want to be noisy, you could be noisy. And in this BMW 1M Coupe, finished in Valencia orange, you know you're going to get noticed.
Right then, ladies and gentlemen, the BMW 2011, there we go. Have a good look at this one. We're asking for £20,000 to start, I believe. At £20,000 if you wish to come in on this one. Anyone interested at £20,000? Working? 20,000 to start me off. How about £15,000? 15's bid. Gentleman's bid in the room at 15,000. We'll go 16 next. At 15,000 is the bid now at 15,000. At £15,000. 16,000 is bid. 17,000, 17,000. At 17,000, would you like 18, sir? 18,000, gentleman's bid now at £18,000. 19,000 is bid. At 19,000 in 20s back in now at £20,000. Gentleman's bid at £20,000. 21's online. 22 straight back in. At £22,000, the bid now at 22. 23,000's bid, 24,000's bid, two bidders online. Would you like 25,000? Thank you, sir. At £25,000, we're bid now at 25,000 is the bid. At 25. At £25,000, we're bid with the gentleman in the room. Both the bidders online. Would either of you like to go £26,000? At 25,000 is the bid. At 25,000, I'll take the 500s from this point then. At £25,000 with the gentleman in the middle of the room. 500 if anyone wishes to go again. At £25,000. At 25,000, are we finished and done? At £25,000 then, it's your last chance and fair warning. This time with the gentleman in the room at £25,000, I'll take 500 if 25.5. Shakes the head. 25.5's online now at 25,005. At 25,500 is the bid. Would anyone else like to come in for £26,000? At 25,500 is here. At 25,500, are we finished and done then? Last chance. Fair warning. At 25,500 with the online bid, are you sure, sir? One more. Shakes head then. We go once with the online bidder then. We go twice. Finished and done. Online bid at £25,500. Finished and done. That's with you online. There we go. Bidder number 1063. I think that is. Yes, it is. 25,000 provisionally with you. Moving on to lot number 6 is this lovely 2009 Ford Focus RX. This one has the Lux pack on it. I absolutely love this thing. So over to you, Steve. Have a good talk about this one.
You're not kidding, Tom. This is an exceptional motor car. Would you believe 2009? I say it again. Would you believe? Look at the car. It's like a brand new car. I'll explain why in just a moment. This is no ordinary RS. It's the Lux Pack 2. That means you get every conceivable option. And having ticked every box on the options list, the chap specified the Mount Tune upgrade on this car. It's had 2 previous owners. It's just passed its MOT. It had a cam belt and a water pump about 2,000 miles ago. And when I tell you that in the last, 2009, so it's 16 years old, this car has covered 7, that's right, not 70 or 17, 7,000 miles from brand new. If you've got a time machine, go back and get one. If you haven't, buy this because it's a brand new car from 2009.
Well, there we go. Looking here at my commission bids online is at 20,000. You've got 20,000 there. 21, 22,000 is my bid, and we start at 22,000. I need to take 23 next if we can. At 23, 24's back to my commission bidder. At 24,000. At £24,000 is the bid now with my commission bid on the book. At 25, my commission bidder's out now at £25,000. The bid's online. At £25,000 with you at the minute online bid at £25,000. Would anyone else like to come in for £26,000? At 25,000. At 25. At 25,000 is the bid here then. Are we finishing done? At £25,000. I'll take the 500s if we need to. At £25,000 is the bid. Who would like a small bite? At £25,000, 25.5. At 25,500 is with you in Lanarkshire. At 25,500 pounds is the bid. At 26,000 gentlemen's bid. At 26,000 coming in 5, 26,5, 27. Thank you again, sir. At 27,000 pounds with the gentleman now. At 27,000 pounds. At 27,27. At 27,000 pounds online, would you like to go again? At 27,000 pounds is the bid at the minute. At 27,000 pounds we are bid. 27,500 back in. At 27,005, 28. Thank you, sir. At 28,000 is the bid. At 28,28. At 28,000 pounds, we're currently bid at 28,000 pounds on the Focus RS at just 28,000 pounds. Would you like to come in for another 500 online? At 28,000 pounds is the current bid. 28,500 online bidders back in at 28,500. 29,000. Thank you, sir. At 29,000 pounds. At 29,000 is the bid now at 29,000 pounds. At 29,29. At 29,000 pounds, then online, are you coming back in for one more? You're thinking about it now. At 29,000 pounds, 29,500. Thank you again. 29,500. 30,000. Thank you, sir. At 30,000 pounds is the bid. At 30,000, 30,000. At 30,000 pounds with the gentleman here, then at 30,000 pounds, we'll take 500 again if you're coming back in online. At 30,000 pounds is the bid now at 30,000. Are we finishing done? With the gentleman here then at 30,000 pounds, we're going to start counting it down at 30,000 pounds once. At 30,000 pounds twice. Finishing done then at 30,000 pounds. That's your bid, sir, at 30,000, provisionally 867, 867. Thank you very much. And we go down to lot number 7 this time is the 1980. It's the DMS-Honda Moto Fox Dickman Speciality. There we go. And over to you, Steve.
Walk this way. I want you to see something very special. Look at that. You're thinking, I've never seen one of those before. And neither have I. This is a DMS-Honda XR520 from 1980, a big single-cylinder off-road motorcycle. It doesn't have a frame number because Dick Mann, the man himself, said that only 25 were made. It was brought into the UK in the 90s. It was built by Rod Spry as Fox factory shocks and rear shocks, which are very rare. The red rocket tank seat and mudguards, handmade side panels, SM Pro rims. It's got a stainless exhaust, a Mikuni carb, hand anodized engine case, wide footpegs, Majora levers, Corsa throttle, Renthal bars. The list goes on and on and on. This is a unique, how old is it now? 1980. Wow, it's 45 years old. When was the last time you saw something 45 years old that looked as good and as tempting as that? It's been a while for me, Tom.
It looks great indeed. You would never, ever know that it's that 45 years old. We've got several bids on the book with me here. I'm going to go straight in. 5,000, 5,005, 6,000 pounds. We start with me at 6,000 pounds. We'll take the 500s from here. At 6,000 pound is the bid at the minute. At 6,000 pounds, the bid. At 6,000, 6,000, would you like to come in for another 500? At 6,000 pounds is the bid. With my commission bidder on the book at 6,000 pounds. At 6,000, 6,000, coming in for 5. At 6,000 pounds is the bid at the minute here. At 6,000 pounds, then are we finishing done? Maiden bid on the book here at 6,000 pounds. At 6,000, 6,000, 6,000, coming in for 5. 6,005, you're in. My interest is out. It's with you, online bidder, at 6,500 pounds, or we are bid now at 6,005. At 6,000, 6,005. At 6,500 with the online bid. We'll take 250, is that on there? 750 then. It will go to 250, sir. 6,750 is your bid. At 6,750 is bid. At 6,750 pounds is the bid now at 6,750. You coming back in for one more online. At 6,750 is the bid. That's an odd increment, but let's get it even. Click accept. You want to add an increment in, just add it in there. Yep. Coming back in online, 2 seconds there. 6,750 pounds is the bid. 7,000, 7,000's bid. At 7,000 now. At 7,000 pounds is the bid now at 7,000. Would you like to go 250? 7,250, thank you, sir. At 7,250 pounds, we're bid. Gentlemen in the room, at 7,250. Just need to push it on one if we can, unless my screen's not updated. At 7,250 is bid. At 7,250. At 7,250, are we finished and done then? With the gentleman in the room at £7,250. Last chance. 7,250, finished and done. Goes once, 7,500. Is that back in? 7,500. New bidder entirely at 7,500 is with you. At 7,500. At £7,500 we're bid at the minute online. Would you like to come back in again for one more, sir? At 7,500. 7,750, thanking you. At 7,750 we are bid. At 7,750, online bidder, your next bid's 8,000 if you wish to go again. At £7,750 we're bid. At 7,750, are you finished? Are you done online? 8,000, back in, thank you again, sir. Online bid now at £8,000 is the bid. At 8,000, 8,000, with the online bidder here at £8,000. Would you like to come in for one more 250? At 8,000, 8,000. At 8,000 is the current bid here online then, it's with you. At £8,000, would you like to come in for one more? It's your last chance in fair warning if you're coming back in. At £8,000. At 8,000, 8,000, all finished and done then, with the online bid here at 8,000 once, 8,000 twice, finished and done with you online at £8,000. That's provisionally with you, online bidder at £8,000. Thank you very much. 8,000 provisional there. Moving down we go to lot number 8. Lot number 8 is the 1974. It's probably one of my favorites in the sale. It's the Ford Escort, Mexico. Have a good look at this one. The color is absolutely sublime. And over to you, Steve.
Tom, you're absolutely bang on. We've shown you Ferraris and Porsches, and they are all well and good. But here's the working man's supercar, the 1974 Ford Escort Mexico. We brought it back from Mexico, said Ford. Look at it here at the front with the quarter bumpers and the Super Oscar Cibi driving lamps there. It looks fantastic, as Tom said, in this fabulous Olympic blue paint job. As good as the outside is, and it's superb, the interior is possibly in even better order. This car was subject to a comprehensive restoration in 2016, and since then, it's been well looked after. In the last few years, the prop's been balanced, it's had a new Weber carburetor, and it's had a tune-up on the rolling road. These RS alloys look the part. One of the best wheels ever put on a motoring car, and we've got a set of matching nearly new tyres. Look at the mud flaps. It's got everything that should be on a car like this, and nothing that shouldn't be on a car like this. And I'll tell you what, the panel fit is way better than when it came out of Dagenham. Tom, it's better than brand new.
And whilst you were just looking and talking about the wheels, just another point to throw out there, they also comes with the new alloy wheel center caps as well. So you might have seen that that cap was missing on the picture, but it does come with the new alloy wheel center caps as well. So we'll just throw that one out there. Anyone got £20,000 to start? Seems cheap to me. £20,000 to get it going. Anyone interested here? Ford Mexico, just £20,000 to start me off. Thank you online. Someone's got to start it. 20,000 is bid. At £20,000, take 1,000 if we can. At 20,000 is the bid now at 20,000. Would you like to go 21? At £20,000 is the bid now at 20,000. At 20,000, 20,000, 21,000. 21's bid, coming back in for 22. At £21,000 is the bid now at 21. 22's in online. At £22,000. At 22, 22. 23, 23's bid. At 23,000 now. At £23,000 we're bid. At 23, 23. 24 bid online. At 24. 25 if you wish to go again. 25, thank you. At 25,000 is the bid. At £25,000. At 25, 25. At 25, 26. 26 is bid. 27, okay, he says. At £27,000 we're bid now at 27. At 27,000 is the bid. At 27, 27. At £27,000 is the bid now at 27,000. At 28,000 back in. At £28,000 with the online bid here at £28,000. At 28,000, would you like to go 29? At £28,000 is the bid here at the minute. At £28,000 we're bid. At 28,000, are we finishing done? I'll take 28.5 if it helps anyone out. At £28,000 is the bid at the minute. At £28,000 we're bid. At 28,000, then are we finished and done? I'll take 5 if you're coming in. At £28,000 with the online bid here. At 28,000. One more 5. Last chance in fair warning this time then with the online bid at the minute. At £28,000, I'm going to start counting you down. 28,500, you're back in, sir. I see you. Thank you. At 28,500 up there. At 28,500. At 28,500 is bid. Would you like to come back in, online bidder, for £29,000? At 29, back in now, 29. Thank you, online. It's with you now. At £29,000 is the bid. At 29,000 is the bid now. At 29,000. Would you like to go 29,500? At £29,000 we're bid. At 29,29. Are we finished and done then at £29,000? It's your last chance in fair warning. The online bid has it at the minute at £29,000 once. At £29,000 twice. Finished and done. Online bid with you at £29,000. That's your bid online at £29,000. So bidder number 1056 again, £29,000 provisionally with you. Moving down, we go to lot number 9 is the 1990. This is the Porsche 928 GT. Look at that. Lovely, lovely Porsche indeed. And over to you, Steve.
Tom, I grew up in Bury, Lancashire. You might be able to tell there's a slight twang in my accent, and we were very lucky. Back in the day when there were only 11 official Porsche dealers outside London and the Southeast, one of them was in my hometown. I remember as a lad making the pilgrimage up to Ian Anthony on Walmsley Road in Bury and seeing what seemed to be a car, but to me seemed like a rocket ship from outer space, the new Porsche, the 928. For years, it's been a sleeper classic, but at last people are beginning to appreciate this isn't an inferior car to the 911. It is a different kind of car, but in some ways, some of us believe, a superior car. This is also a very rare car. It's a 1990 right-hand drive 928 GT. They made 1,600 in total, only 60 in right-hand drive. This one was sold new in Cardiff, and it's got that rarest of rare things, a fully stamped service book. 37 service stamps in the book, and that's perhaps even rarer than this car. I was entranced by the shape of this thing and by what it offered all those years ago, and I still am. And when they're as rare as this and in this kind of condition, I'm sure there's somebody out there tonight, this evening, that's going to feel just as passionate about this car as the people that have owned it since it was new in 1990, and as I do today. Come on, get it bought. They do not come along very often, these.
Yes, we got several interest on my book on this one. It's the rarer Porsche as well. Lovely shape indeed, slightly different to the rest of them. And we're going to go straight in. I'm going to go 20, 21, 22, £23,000 with my commission bidders at the minute. At 23,000 we start. At £23,000 is the bid now at 23. At £23,000 we're bid. At 23. At £23,000 is the bid here at the minute at £23,000. You coming back in now for 24. At 24, thank you online, you're in. 25's my bid here at £25,000. At 25,000 is the bid now at 25. At £25,000 on the book here at £25,000 we are bid. Would anyone else like to come in for £26,000? At 25,000 is the bid. At 25. At £25,000, are we finished and done then at £25,000 here on the book with me? At 25,000, coming back in now for 26. 26 they're in. At 26,000, new bidder again. At £26,000 is with you online. At 26,000, my interest is out now. Online bidder has it at the minute. At £26,000 is the bid. At 26. At £26,000. Would anyone else like to come in for 27,000? At 26,000 is the bid here at 26. At £26,000 we're bid. 27,000 now. At 27, 28 will you? At 27,000 is bid. At £27,000, gentleman's bid at £27,000. 28's back in online. At 28,000 we're bid. At 28,000 is the bid now at 28. Would you like to go 29? At £28,000 we're still online. At 28,000 is the bid. Would you like to go 500? 28.5. Yes, please, they say. 28.5 is bid. At 28,500, we're bid now at 28,500. Online, would you like to go 29? At 28,500 is the bid now at 28,500. 29 bidders back in now at £29,000 is with you online in Liverpool at £29,000. At 29.29. At £29,000 is the bid. Coming in one more, sir. 29.5, will you? At £29,000 is still online then at £29,000. At 29.29. At 29,000, are we finished and done then with the online bid here at £29,000? I'm going to start counting it down at 29,000. It goes once. At £29,000, it goes twice. Finished and done then at £29,000. That's your bid online, 1096 at £29,500 provisionally with you. Moving on, down we go to lot number 10, 1973 is the BMW 3-litre CSI, and I absolutely adore this one. So over to you, Steve.
Some cars have presents, Tom, and this is one of them. When I say that, I mean whether you like it or not, whether it's your favorite car in the room or not, whether you don't like the shape of it. If you don't like the shape of it, I think you need to check. You need to give your head a wobble, basically. This is one of the sexiest, most sensual and immediately identifiable shapes in 1970s motoring. This car was sold new in Germany. It's a left-hand drive back in 1973. Made it to the UK in 2022. That would have been good, wouldn't it? In a time machine. 2022, where it underwent an incredible restoration. Originally white, which is okay if you like that sort of thing. It's now finished in this amazing and much more appropriate coppery, orangey, metallic colour. As good as the exterior is, the interior is really something very special indeed. The quality of this restoration, can I call it a resto mod? Certain things have been uprated. The radio looks original. It's not, it looks original, but you can use Bluetooth, you can Apple CarPlay and all that kind of stuff on it. And we've got some later 16-spoke BBS alloy wheels, the split rims there, just like the ones on my dad's 2002 Tii that I learned to drive in all those years ago. This car is a superstar of a car. It's something very special. You won't find another one. It's a 3-litre with a manual option, and they are very rare. And for me, it just screams 70s style, sophistication, and sex. Yeah, I said it, Tom, the S word.
Right then, let's start the bidding off. Anyone interested in starting me off today on the BMW? £50,000. It seems reasonable to me. Anyone interested at £50,000? Anyone like to start me off? I'm going to go with your bid there then. At £34,000 we start. Online bid at £34,000 now. At £34,000 is the bid. At 36,000 now. At 36. At £36,000 is the bid at 36,000. 38,000 at 38,000 now. At £38,000 we're bid. At 38.40's bid now back in at £40,000. At 40,002. At 42,000. At 42.42. At £42,000 we're bid. 44 back in. At £44,000 the bid now at 44,000. At 44.44. 46, thank you again. At £46,000 we're bid. At 46,000 is the bid now at 46. At 46,000 is the bid. At £46,000. Would you like to go 48? At £46,000 is the bid then at 46,000. I'll take 47 from this point. Would you like to come in for the thousands? At 46,000 is bid. 47's bid now at 47,000. At £47,000 with the online bid at 47. At 47,000 is the bid here, online with you at £47,000. Would anyone else like to come in for 48? At 47,000. At 47.47. At £47,000 is the bid now at 47. Are we finished and done here at just £47,000? 48,000, thank you. At £48,000 we're bid. At £48,000 is the bid now at 48. Next bid is 49 if you're coming back in. At £48,000, gentleman's bid here. At £48,000 is the bid. At 48,000 now. Would you like to go 49? At 48, 48. 49 they do. Thank you very much online. You're in at £49,000. Your next bid is 50 if you're coming back in. At £49,000 is the bid. At 49, 49. At £49,000, are we finished and done here then at £49,000? At 49,000 then, coming in for one more. At 49, 49, thinking about it. At £49,000 is the bid. At 49,000, I'll help you out. What about 49,500? At £49,000. At 49,000, finished and done then. With the online bid here, we're going to start counting it down. At £49,000 online bid has it here. 49.5. I thought that might tempt you back in. At 49,005. At 49,500 online bidder, would you like to go 50? At 49,500, we are bid. At 49,005. At 49,500, are we finished and done then online? At 49,500 with the gentleman here. At 49,500, I'm going to count it down. At 49,500, it goes once. At 49,500, 50,000 now back online. Thanking you at £50,000 with our online bidder, then at £50,000. At 50,000, 50,000. At £50,000, the bid is online. At £50,000, we are bid then at 50,000. Are we finished and done here? At £50,000, your last chance. And fair warning then, at £50,000, it's going to go once. It's going to go twice. At 50,005, back in at 50,005. At 50,500, we're bid. At 50,005. At 50,500, I'm looking for you now online. At £50,500, would you like to go 51? At 50,500 online, it's your turn. At 50,500, then once. At 50,500, then twice. Make no mistake, online bidder, you're out at 50,500. Finished and done then at £50,500. Provisionally with you, sir, 220. Thank you very much, 220. And then we go down to lot number 11 is the 1998 Lotus Elise. And over to you, Steve.
Riddle me this, Tom. How does it happen that a car like this one, this beautiful 1998 Lotus Elise, named after Elisa Artoli, the granddaughter of Romano Artoli, was the man who owned Lotus at the time, and of course he owned Bugatti at one point. Not that he owns either of them right now. How does a car like this end up with 4 owners in those 27 years, but a total mileage of 2,200 miles, which means that it is effectively like a brand new car. Now, there weren't many options on the Elise because it was the epitome of Colin Chapman's mantra, the great Colin Chapman. I made a pilgrimage in London recently to the garage at the back of his mum and dad's pub where he built his first car. Yeah, that's how much of a Lotus nut I am. Like I say, there weren't many options, but there were some. The Alpine CD player, it's got that. The leather trim seats, it's got those. The Thatcham alarm is also present. Believe it or not, although it's only done 2,200 miles, it has had a restoration. I think it must have been a museum. It must have been on display in some multi-millionaire's pad in Benidorm or something like that. I don't know. All I know is that here is an opportunity to buy a 27-year-old Lotus, the epitome of a Lotus. Simplify and add lightness. To buy one of those in as new condition.
The little mileage Elise then. Let's start me off. You're in online at 13,000. I'm going to go 14 and 15,000 pounds with my commission interest. At 15,000 pounds, we're bid. At 15,000, 15, 16's bid now at 16,000. At 16,000 pounds online. Commission interest is out at 16,000 pounds with the online bidder at the minute. At 16,000, 16,000. At 16,000 pounds, we're bid. At 16,000, I'll take 17 if anyone else is interested from this point. At 16,000 pounds, 17's bid. At 17,000 now. At 17,000, 17,000. Would you like to go 18? At 17,000, we're bid. At 17,000, 17,000. I'll take 500s from this point then. At 17,000 pounds, we'll go for the halves. At 17,000 is the bid. At 17,000, 17,000, coming back in for 5. At 17,000 pounds, we're bid. At 17,000, 17,000, are we finished and done? You're thinking about it now. At 17,000 pounds is the bid. 17,500, new bidder online. At 17,500 with you. At 17,500. At 17,500 is the bid. At 17,500, would you like to go 18? Only 2,200 miles from new. At just 17,500 pounds, we are bid. At 17,500. At 17,500 is the bid at the minute online. At 17,500. Would anyone else like to come in for 18? Are we finished and done here? At 17,500. At 17,500, 17,500, 17,500. At 17,500, it's going to go then this time. At 17,500 pounds is your last chance in fair warning here. At 17,500. For the first time then, at 17,500 pounds. For the second time, at 17,500, you're all finished, you're all done. At 17,500 pounds, finished and done. 17,500 with you online at 17,500. That is a provisional bid with you online bidder there. Moving down we go. Another lovely car in today's sale is lot number 12. It's this 1960s Maserati 3500 GT. And over to you, Steve.
Tom, in the 1960s, British cinema churned out hit after hit. The films are in black and white. They call them kitchen sink dramas, and they starred future superstars like Tom Courtenay, Albert Finney, and Lawrence Harvey. I wonder if you remember a movie called Room at the Top. In it, Lawrence Harvey plays a textile baron in Yorkshire, climbing his way to the top of the greasy pole. And in the final scene, there is an amazing panning shot of him driving away from the mill that he's just wrenched out of the control of everybody else in one of these. A Maserati 3500 GT, and the message is very clear. If you've got one of these, you've got right to the very top. This was a very special car in its day and remains so today. The engine is a detuned version of the Maserati racing engine, and it's been mated to a 5-speed gearbox. It has disc brakes. This is a very usable car, a beautiful car from 1960 that's very usable in 2025. Obviously, it's been the subject of extensive and very expensive restoration work, including engine work in the last few years that amounts to bills of over £6,000. An exquisite car, super Leggera construction, just like an Aston Martin DB4. Find me a better looking car. In fact, there are quite a few in this sale. I was saying, find me a better looking car. This room's full of fantastic cars, but few are more fantastic. I shall say it again, Tom. The Maserati 3500 GT Super Leggera. It even sounds good when I say it, Tom.
And they don't get much more classy than this. So much elegance to this car. Absolute beautiful machine indeed. 1960 Maserati. Who's got £70,000 to start me off on this? £70,000 seems really cheap to me to start it off. £70,000. Find another at 70,000. Thank you online. At 70,000 is big. Go in twos if we can. Go in fives if anyone's interested. Was anyone interested at 75,000? Coming in for 75. At 70,000 is bid. At 70,000, 75,000 now. At 75,000 pounds, we're bid. At 75,000, we're bid. At 75, 75. At 75,000, would you like to come back in for 80? At 75,000 is the bid now at 75,000 pounds. At 75,000, 80's bid. At 80,000 pounds now. At 80,000 pounds, we are bid here then on the Maserati 3500 GT at 80,000 pounds. At 80,000 pounds is the bid now at 80,000. Coming in for another 5. At 80,000 pounds is the bid then at 80,000. 85,000 pounds, thank you. At 85,000 now. Gentleman's bid at 85,000 pounds. At 85, 85. At 85,000 pounds is the bid now at 85,000. Would you like to go 90? At 85,000 is the bid. At 85, 85. At 85,000 pounds, coming back in. One more. You're thinking about it. 90,000, thank you online. You're back in at £90,000. At 90,000, 90,000. At £90,000 is the bid now at £90,000. Would you like to go 92? At £90,000 we're bid. At 90,000, 90,000. 2 if you're coming back in. At £90,000 we're bid. At 90,000. At £90,000 is the bid now at £90,000. Are we finished and done? 92,000 is bid. Thanking you again, sir. At £92,000, the bid is with you. At £92,000. At 92,000. At 92. At £92,000 is the bid now at 92. Would you like to go 94 anywhere else or online? At £92,000 is the bid. 94, thank you again. At 94, another bidder this time at £94,000. You've still got some competition. At 94,000 is the bid. At 94. At 94,000, 96. £96,000 is bid. At £96,000 is the bid now at £96,000. Would you like to go 98? At 96,000 is the bid. At £96,000. 98 online. You're back in now at £98,000 with the original bidder now at £98,000. At 98,000. At £98,000. Your next bid is 100,000 if you're coming back in. At 98,000 is the bid now at 98. At £98,000 we are bid. At 98,000 then. Are we finished and done at £98,000? Would you like to go one more? At 98,000 is the bid. At £98,000 then, are we finished? Are we done? £100,000. Thank you very much, sir. Your bid at 100,000 now. At 100. At 100,000 is the bid then in the room here. At £100,000. Gentleman's bid at £100,000 we're bid. Online bidder will stay in the twos for you now. At £100,000 is the bid. Are we finished? Are we done? At 100,000 then online, it's your turn. 102,000, thanking you online, you're back in at £102,000. At 102,000, 102. At £102,000 is the bid now at £102,000. Would you like to go one more again, sir? Would you like 104,000? At £102,000, then it's online. At 102,000 is the bid now at 102. Are we finished and done? At £102,000, it's going to count it down now. At £102,000, it goes once. At 102,000, £104,000. Thank you very much, sir. At £104,000, it's with you. Online, would you like to go 106? We're looking for you, online bidder. Coming in for one more. At £104,000, are we all finished? Are we all done? At 104,000 is the bid. Are you coming in on the phone? At £104,000. At 104,000 is the bid now. 104,106. Online bidder, it's with you now. At 106,000 is your bid. At 106,000 is the bid now at £106,000. At 106,000. At £106,000 is the bid now at 106. Would anyone else like to come in for £108,000? At 106,000 is the bid then. With you, online bidder, you're thinking about it still. At £106,000, are we finished and done? Absolute, beautiful, classy machine at £106,000 we're bid with you online. At £106,000 then, once. At £106,000 then, twice. All finished, all done. Last chance, fair warning then, it's now or never. At £106,000 with the online bidder, £106,000. That's your bid online. We'll see what we can do for you. Thank you very much to you as well, underbidder. At £106,000, we'll submit that bid 1047's way. Thank you very much. £106,000 provisionally with you online. Thank you very much. Moving on, we go to lot number 13 this time. Lot number 13 is the 2010 in the year. It's the Ferrari California. I mean, who doesn't love these? And over to you, Steve.
Tom, I'm back at the movies. I wonder how many of you will remember the 1980s film American Gigolo, which made a star of Richard Gere. It began with an iconic scene of Richard Gere at the wheel of a Mercedes SL, while in the background you heard Call Me by Blondie. If they'd made that film in 2010 rather than the 80s, then surely, because there's a Mercedes SL, a ladies' car, debate and discuss, surely if they made it in 2010, it would have been one of these, a 2010 Ferrari California in Rosso Corsa. The first Ferrari with a V8 in the front, the first Ferrari with a 7-speed dual clutch transmission, the first with multi-link suspension, the first with a folding metal roof, and the first with direct petrol injection. So many firsts, but they didn't forget tradition. And if you are looking at tradition when it comes to Ferrari, why not Rosso Corsa with a piped crema interior? This car was sold new by JCT in Leeds. It's got 10 stamps in the service book. The first 4 are from JCT. The others are from Stratstone. The car was living in the Isle of Man, but it was brought back to leafy Cheshire for all its servicing requirements. The gentleman who spec'd it, and it was a gentleman, just look at the interior. Look at those red carpets, how they contrast with the red piped crema leather interior. It's tradition married with technology. Do you know what, Tom? Tradition with technology and more style than you can shake. I was going to say a stick, but surely a silver-topped cane at from the epitome of Southern California style, a 2010 Ferrari California.
There we go. Imagine cruising in this one. Someone might be. We never know. We're going to go straight in with your bid at 24.26 with me at £26,000. 28. 28's bid. Thank you, sir. At £28,000. Gentleman's bid here at 28,000 now. 30's online. Would you like 2? At 30,000, 32. Thank you again. At 32,000 is the bid. At 32, 32. Gentleman's bid here at £32,000. 34's in online. 35. 35, okay. At £35,000, we'll take it. A bid's a bid at £35,000. At 35, 36, they're straight back in though, sir, at £36,000. Shakes the head then at £36,000 with the online bidder here. At 36, 36. At £36,000 is the bid now at 36,000. At 36, £36,000 online. Would anyone else like to go 37? At £36,000, Ferrari California, just £36,000 were bid. At 36,000 is the bid now at 36. At £36,000 with the online bid, would anyone like to go 37? At 36,000 is the bid now at 36, and only 23,000 miles on the odometer at £36,000. At 36,000 is the bid now at 36. Would anyone like to go 37? At 36,000 is bid. At 37, your bid, thank you, sir, at £37,000. New bidder now at 37 with you. Online, would you like to go 38? At 37,000 is the bid now at 37,000. At 37, 37. At £37,000, would anyone else like to come in for £38,000? We're looking for you now. At 37,000 is the bid. Are we finished and done? At £37,000. Online bidder, you coming back for one more. At 37,000 is the bid. At 37,000, 37. 38, you're in. At £38,000. 38.5. 38.5, okay. At 38,005. At 38,005. Next bid's 39 if you're coming in. At 38,005. Gentleman's bid. At 38,500 were bid. At 38.5. At 38,500, would anyone like to come in for 39? At 38,005. 39, online's bid. 39 shakes the head now at £39,000. At 39,000, we'll stay in these 500s there at £39,000. At 39,000, 39,000 online has it here then at £39,000. Would anyone else like to go 39.5? At 39, 39. At 39,000 is the bid now at 39. Are we finished and done then with the online bid? Is everyone sure? At £39,000. Are you sure you don't want one more? At £39,000. Last chance in 39.5. New bidder this time at 39.5. With you in Wales at 39,500 is the bid. At 39.5. At 39,500, we're bid now at 39,005. Would anyone like to go 40? At 39,005. At 39,500 is the bid here online at 39.5. At 39.5, 39.5. At 39,500, 40 if you're coming back in. At 39,500, the bid. At 39.5. Are we finished and done then? At 39,500, we're going to start counting it down. At 39,500, it goes once. At 39,500, it goes twice. Don't miss out online. At 39,500, are you all finished? Are you all done? At 39,500, provisionally with, oh, I'll take it, 40 just in time. It wasn't on sale there, so the hammer has not gone down. £40,000. It's with you in Jersey. Welcome. At £40,000 is your bid. At 40,000, 40,000. At £40,000 is the bid now at £40,000. Would anyone like another 5? It's continued on. At 40,500 we're bid. At 40,500 it's back to Wells it goes. At 40,005. At £40,500 is the bid now at 40,005. Underbidder, would you like to go 41,000 in Jersey? At 40,005. At 40,500 is the bid now at 40,005. Are we finished and done? Your last chance in fair warning then at £40,500. We're going to count it down at 40,500. It goes once. At 40,500, it goes twice. Finished and done then. Last chance in fair warning at 40,005. That's with you online bidder at £40,500 provisionally. And we are going to move down to lot number 14, 1995 Porsche 911 Carrera. And over to you, Steve.
30-year-old 911 993, if you prefer, with the 3.6 litre version of the flat six engine driving through those rear wheels, and very much of its time, 1995, 30 years ago, a Tiptronic gearbox. So yes, that means buttons on the steering wheel, which is on the right-hand side. We'll come to that in a minute. And a stick where you can semi-automatically swap your gears. Guards red is the color of the exterior. You knew that. It's got 18-inch cup alloys with matching Pirelli P0 tires. The interior is trimmed in black leather and is in fantastic condition. And it's done just 46,000 miles in those 30 years. And that's because right-hand drive, but not sold new in the UK, not sold new in Japan. Oh, you thought you were going to get me there, didn't you? You'd say, it's a Japanese car, Berry. No, sold new in Hong Kong, which of course is a fantastic place. And I'll stay away from any political controversies and concentrate on the geography. Very small, which perhaps indicates the mileage that it hasn't done, which means it's in such fantastic condition. Surely the classic combo. Oh, by the way, it's had a new hood and a new cover very recently. It's got an upgraded stereo and it's got a very nice rorty exhaust system to make it sound, Tom, as good as it looks and as good as it goes. And they don't go much better than a 1995 Porsche 911 Carrera 2 Cabriolet.
There we go. And we're going to go straight in with my commission bid. You're in at 28. I'm in at £30,000. We start at 30,000 on the Cabriolet. At £30,000. At 30,000, 30,000. At 30,000, 32. At 32,000 is bid now at £32,000. At 32, 32. At 32,000 is the bid now at £32,000. At 32,000. At 32, 32. Would you like to go 34? At 32,000 is bid. I'll take 33 if it helps anyone out then. At £32,000, we're online. At 32,000. At £32,000 is the bid now at 32. At 32, 33, okay. At £33,000, thanking you very much. At £33,000, the bid is with you now at 33,000. At 33, 33. At £33,000, 34's back in online. At 34, 35 straight away, thank you again. At £35,000, we're bid. At 35,000 is the bid now at 35. At 35,000, we're bid. At £35,000 is the bid. Would you like to go 3,600 bidder? At 35,000. At £35,000, we're bid now at 35. Are we finished and done here then? At £35,000. At 35,000, it's going to count it down then at 35. At £35,000, finished and done. Online, would you like to go 36? It goes once at £35,000. It goes twice at £35,000. 36, I see you, sir. Thank you very much. At £36,000, the bid is yours. At 36,000. At 36, 36. At £36,000, we're bid now at 36,000. Would you like to go 37? At £36,000 is bid. At 36,000 is the bid now at 36. Online, would you like to go 37? At £36,000 is the bid now at 36,000. Are we finished? Are we done? Last chance. Gentleman's bid here at £36,000. It goes once, it goes twice. It's finished and done then. Last chance in fair warning, this time at £36,000. Provisionally with you, sir. Bidder number 220. Thank you very much. There, 220 there. Right then, lot number 15 is this lot number 15 is the 2004 Aston Martin Vanquish. And over to you, Steve.
What an amazing car. There are few Aston Martins in the world, much fewer than many other marques of car that have a similar presence. Aston haven't made that many cars. They haven't made many Aston Martin Vanquishes. And I'll tell you what, even fewer Aston Martin Vanquish S's. And this is one of them. Styled. He doesn't like the word designed. I know the guy. Styled. But I was having a drink with him last week at the NEC Classic Car Show. Ian Callum, the man that did the DB7. This is a much more aggressive looking car, but it's far from in your face. Its aggression it's quite Bond-like in that it's subtle. Now, this one has only done 80,000 miles since 2004, so that's in nearly 21 years of ownership. You've got 4 valves per cylinder in this V12 engine that's in the front here, and you've got a car which is absolutely ready to go with genuine James Bond style. But what if all that success with the ladies that James Bond always seemed to have in the many movies that we've seen and loved down the years, what if he happened to have some offspring? Well, in the back, it's a 2+2. You might be able to squeeze a few of them. An absolutely fantastic looking car in great condition. Like so many of the cars in the room, it's hard to find a favorite, and I hesitate to use this word in such company, but Tom, I'm going to do it. I think this is going to be the biggest bargain. Yeah, I'm going to use that word in our platinum sale. The biggest bargain in the sale. The 2004 Aston Martin Vanquish S. An awful lot of motor car, but I don't think an awful lot of money at all.
And it's a super high performance car as well. Look at it there. Absolutely looks beautiful. Iconic James Bond car as well. Who's got £20,000 to start me off? Surely. £20,000, 2004 Aston. Is that 18? We'll take it. That's good enough for me. 18,000 is bid. At £18,000. At 18,000 with the online bid now at £18,000. And 20,000 is bid. At 20,000, 20,000. At £20,000, we're bid now at £20,000. At 20,000 is the bid now at 22. At 22,000 back in. At 22,000 is the bid. At 22, 22. At £22,000, would anyone like to go 24? At 22,000 is bid. At £22,000 on the Aston Martin there. At £22,000 we're bid. I'll take 23 if it helps then. At 22,000, 23. At £23,000 we're bid now at 23,000. At 23, 23. At £23,000 is the bid. Would anyone like to go 24? At 24 online. At 24 is with you online bidder now at £24,000. At 24,000. At 24, 24. Coming back in for 25. At 24,000 is the bid now at 24. At £24,000. Would you like to go 25? At 24,000, are we finished and done then? At just £24,000 is the bid with the online bidder. At 24, 25 back in. Thank you very much, sir. At 25,000 is your bid now. At 25,000. At 25, 25. At £25,000 is the bid now at 25. Would you like to go 26? At 25, 25. At £25,000 we're bid. Online, would you like to go 26? At 25, or anyone else in the room like to go 26? Now's your chance. At £25,000 then, it goes once. At £25,000 finished and done, it goes twice. £25,000, last chance in fair warning, then we'll submit the bid at £25,000. 1102, £25,000. That is a provisional bid then. Right then, just before we move on to the next one, got a little update for you. Provisional sales system and the team have been absolutely working really hard here. Lot number 4, the Ferrari 328 GTS, sold away at £48,000. So that one's gone now. That's how the provisional bidding system works, ladies and gentlemen. And lot number 16 is the 1969 Mercedes-Benz 280 then. And over to you, Steve.
Caught me unawares there, Tom. I was looking at this beautiful 1969 Mercedes-Benz 280 SL. My pal, who's here tonight, in fact, I think he's just left. So he was here tonight. My pal here, Sean Bramall, he's got one of these, but his is from 1968. And let me tell you something. When I drove it, I was shocked at just how sporty these early Mercedes SL Pagodas are. This car later morphed into much more of a boulevardier, much more of a kind of wafting off to lunch somewhere nice and expensive. But back in the late 60s, these were real drivers' cars. And this isn't a 230, it's not a 250, it's a 280 with this beautiful deep burgundy red paintwork and a recently retrimmed cream leather interior. This car has wanted for nothing in its long life. What has needed to be replaced has been replaced. What has needed to be repaired has been repaired. We have a very long list from the recent past in its latest restoration where almost £25,000 was spent going through the car from top to bottom and replacing those essential items that a car like this needs replacing after all that time out there in the world being fabulous. Isn't it a fabulous car, Tom? Come on. Look at it.
Absolutely beautiful it is. And we are going to start the bidding off with me. I'm going to go in 30,000, 32, 34,000 pounds to start on the commission bid there at 32, 34,000. At 34, 34. Next bid's 36 if you wish to come in. At 34,000 pounds we're bid. At 34, 36, 36 is bid. At 36,000 with you online. At 36,000 pounds now. Somewhere in the United Kingdom is with you at 36, 38 new bidder now, at 38 in Liverpool, at £38,000. At 38,000, would anyone like to go 40? At 38,000 here, at 38, 38 with the online bid now, at £38,000 we're bid, at £38,000, at 38, 38, at £38,000 is the bid now at 38, at 38,000 then, with the online bid, would you like to go 40? At £38,000. At 38, 38 bid. At £38,000. I'll take 39 if it helps you out, underbidder. At 38, 39. 39's bid. At £39,000. At 39,000, your next bid's 40. At 39,000 is the bid now at 39. At 39,000 now at 39 and 40's bid. At £40,000. Liverpool bidders in at £40,000. At 40,000, 40,000. At 40,000, would anyone like to go 41? At £40,000 is the bid now at 40,000. Are we finished and done with the online bid then? At £40,000. At 40,000, 40,000. Last chance, fair warning. Online bidder at £40,000 will submit the bid once, twice. Finished and done at £40,000. That's your bid online, 1056. I think that is 1056, £40,000. That is a provisional bid with you. We'll get someone in the office to give you a call and we will speak to you very soon. Thank you very much. Moving on down we go to lot number 17 this time. Lot number 17, 2008. Ducati Desmo RR, and there's no better person to talk about bikes than Steve Berry.
Tom, I feel like I should be wearing breathing equipment because we are at the very top of the mountain, and that mountain is Everest. It doesn't get any higher. The 2008 Ducati Desmosedici RR. This bike belonged to in fact, people have told me, I didn't know the gentleman, Declan Eccles. He had an amazing race career in beach racing, in speedway at Bellevue, where my dad took me and my brother Neil when we were lads to see the likes of Peter Collins. And he was a national road racing champion. Not many people are able to win in those different disciplines. Fortunately, the gentleman had the wherewithal to indulge his every desire when it came to motorcycling. And so having bought this Desmosedici RR, he proceeded to spend £30,000 customizing the motorcycle. Now, I'll be honest with you, Tom, when I was told this, I flat out didn't believe it, because a Desmosedici RR comes with everything already. Then they explained where that money had gone. The replacement carbon fiber wheels, the short shifter kit, items that cost many, many, many thousands of pounds. It comes with this personalized registry. It comes with everything. Do you know what, Tom? I'm going to shut up, because instead of telling you what it comes with, I'm just going to say this. It's a Desmosedici RR, the top of the mountain, and then some. That's it.
Do you need to say any more? There we go. Starting away, I'm going to go straight in with my commission interest at 20, 22, £24,000. We start at £24,000 now. At 24,000 is the bid. At 24, 24. At £24,000 is the bid now. At £24,000. We'll take 26 if you're coming in. At 24,000 is the bid. At 24, 24. At £24,000 now. At 24,000, are we finishing done then? Commission interest at £24,000. At 24, 24. At £24,000 is the bid in 26. At 26,000, 28 back to me. At £28,000. At 28,000 is the bid now. At 28. At 28,000 now. At 28,000 is the bid. I'll take 29 if it helps you out online. At 28,000 is bid now. 28. At £28,000. Would anyone like to go 29? At 28,000 is the bid now. At 28. At 28,000 now. At 28,000, are we finishing done here? At 28,000 is the bid. At £28,000 then finishing done. My commission bidder at the minute at £28,000. I'll take 29 if you're coming back in online. At 28,000 is bid. At 28, 28. At 28, 29. At 29,000 now. At 29,000 is the bid. My commission interest is out. It's with you online at £29,000. At 29,000 is the bid now. At 29. Would anyone like to go 30? At 29,000 is the bid. At 29, 29. At 29,000, are we finished? Are we done? At 29,000, it goes once. At £29,000, it goes twice. Finishing done with the online bid then at £29,000. That's your bid online bidder at £29,000 to 1102. 1102. We'll see what we can do for you online. Moving down we go to lot number 18, 2002 Porsche 911 GT2, possibly the ultimate Porsche. And over to you, Steve.
Blimey, I was just talking about ultimates on 2 wheels, and now it's ultimates on 4 wheels. 2002 Porsche 911 GT2, 3.6 litres of water-cooled Germanic loveliness with twin turbos, 475 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, at a top speed with a 2 at the front, followed by 2 noughts. Yeah, they're really easy things to remember, and I'm very glad at that because I've got a lot to remember for tonight. Inside, we've got high spec with a center console, carbon fiber bits and bobs everywhere. We've got these amazing race seats with full harnesses. This is a racing car for the road. However, because it's a Porsche, it's not going to eat your children. In fact, you could take your, I was going to say you could take your children, you could take a child to school in it. It is a livable road-going supercar. This one does 30,000 miles from new. And if you know what you're looking at, then you know what you're looking at. And you're looking at one of the best road legal cars, 2002 Porsche 911 GT2.
And we're straight in at £40,000 on this one. At 42, 44, 46,000 is where we start with my commission interest. At £46,000. At 46,000 is the bid. At 46, 48, 48,000 pounds. I'm going to have to go 50 and I'll take 2 if you want to go one more. At 50,000 pounds is bid on the book. At 50,000, 50,000. At 50,000 pounds we're bid. 52 online. My interest is out now at 52,000 pounds with the online bid. At 52,000. At 52, 52. Online bidder here at 52,000 pounds. Would anyone like to go 54? At 52,000 is the bid. At 52, 52. At 52,000 pounds, we're bid now at 52,000 pounds with you online. At 52,000 is the bid now at 52. At 52, 52 online bid. At 52,000 pounds. Would anyone like to go 54? At 52,000 pounds is the bid now at 52,000. At 52,000 pounds, the bid is here online. At 52,000 pounds, are we finished and done then? At 52,000 pounds, I'll tell you what, I'll take 53 if you want to go one more. 53, thank you. Before you, sir, would you like to go 54? At 53,000 pounds down front. At 53,000 pounds, or online, would you like to go 54? At 53,000 pounds. Gentleman's bid then at 53,000 pounds in the middle of the room there at 53,000. At 53, 53. At 53,000 pounds, I'll take 54 if anyone else wishes to come back in. At 53,000 pounds. At 53,000. Are we finished? Are we done? At 53,000 pounds is your last chance in fair warning this time then. At 53,000 pounds, go once. At 53,000 pounds, we go twice. Finished and done then at 53,000 pounds. 54, very close, just on the wire. 54,000 pounds, new bidder entirely in Essex at 54,000. At 54, 54. At 54, would you like to go 55? At 54,000 pounds now with the bidder in Essex there at 54,000 pounds. At 54,000. At 54, 54. At 54,000 pounds is the bid now at 54,000. Are we finished? Are we done? At 54,000 pounds, I'll take 55 if you wish to go again. It's your last chance in fair warning though. At 54,000 pounds, 55. Thank you very much. At 55,000 pounds. At 55,000 is the bid now at 55. Online in Essex, would you like to go 56? At 55,000 is the bid. At 55, 55. At 55,000, then we're going to count it down. Got to be fair to the chap in the room here. At 55,000 pounds, it goes once. Is that a bid? 56. 56 there. Back to Essex again. At 56,000 pounds. At 56,000 is the bid now at 56. At 56,000 pounds, we're bid. At 56,000 is the bid now at 56. Would anyone like to go 57? At 56,000, then are we finished and done with the Essex bidder? 57? 57, thank you. At 57, gentlemen's back in now. At 57, thank you very much, sir. At 57,000 pounds, the bid is with you. At 57,000. At 57, 57. At 57,000 pounds is the bid online in Essex. Would you like to go 58? At 57,000 pounds, are you finished? Are you done? At 57,000 pounds once. At 57,000 pounds twice. Make no mistake, underbidder at 57,000 pounds. Finished and done at 57,000. Your bid, sir, at 57,000. 362. Thank you. We'll see what you can do for you. 362. Provisional there. And I'm going to go to lot number 19 this time. Is this lovely 1965 Sunbeam Tiger? And over to you, Steve.
Tom, in the late 50s and early 60s, we, the British, decided that it would be a good idea to build rear-wheel drive two-seater sports cars and sell them to Americans so that we could make lots of lovely money because we needed it. The war had been rather expensive. Anyhow, very few of these cars stayed here in the UK, but this one did, sort of. You'll notice that the steering wheel is on the right-hand side. Let me tell you a sad story with a happy ending. This car was left outside here in the UK for 30 years. Now, we all know what that does to a car, or indeed anything that's left outside of the UK for 30 years. The car was beyond restoration as it was. So, a California body For a Sunbeam Alpine, the lesser relation of the V8 Tiger was found, and every single component that could be swapped over from the original car was swapped over to this one. It was then finished in this delightful dark forest green color with the black interior. And, you know, they used to say, put a tiger in your tank. I'd say, put a tiger in your garage. This one, because that restoration that I told you about, go and have a guess. What do you reckon, Tom? £26,000?
And the rest?
£36,000. As Brucey would say, higher, my love, higher, higher. The bloke spent £56,000 on the restoration. It's a right-hand drive Sunbeam Tiger, and it's just about perfect. Go on, bite. Have a bite on it. You know you want to.
We got loads of commission interest on this one. I'm just going to run straight in with it here. 2 seconds. I'm going to go 10, 11, 12, 14, 16, 18, and £20,000 we start. At 20,000, I'm looking for 2 if we can. At 20,000 is the bid now on the book here. At £20,000 we're bid. At 20,000, 20,000. At £20,000 is the bid now. At 20,000, would anyone like to go 22? At 20,000, 20,000. At 20,000 is the bid now. At 20,000 on the Sunbeam Tiger here. At £20,000 with my commission interest. At 20,000, 20,000. At 20,000, you coming in now. At £20,000 is bid. 22. Online bid at 22. I'm out. You're in online. I'll take 23 now. At £22,000 is the bid now. 22. At 22,000 is bid. At 22, 22. At 23. £23,000. Cheshire locally with you at £23,000. At 23, 24. At 24, 24. At 24 in Herefordshire there. At £24,000 is coming your way. At 24,000 is the bid now. At 24. Would you like to go 25? At £24,000 we're bid at the minute at 24. At 24, 24. At £24,000 is the bid now. At 24. I'll take the 500s from this point then if it helps you out. At £24,000 the bid is online. In Herefordshire at the minute, 24,500. At 24,500 Cheshire's in. At 24,005 and 25 straight back in now. At £25,000 your bid online. At 25,000. At 25, 25. At 25,000 is the bid. Would you like to come in for another 5? At 25,500. At 25,500 here then. At 25,500 the bid is here then online. At 25,500. 26 thanking you. At £26,000 online battle going on here. At £26,000 we're bid. At 26, 26. The Sunbeam Tiger at £26,000. At 26, 26. At 26, would you like to get your clause in for another bid? At 26,000, are you finished and done? At 26,000, last chance in fair warning. At £26,000 is the bid here then. It goes once. At 26,000, 26,500. At 26,500, Cheshire bidder, you're back. And 27, thank you very much in Herefordshire. You're fast bidding at £27,000 straight back in. At 27,000. At 27,000 is the bid now. At 27. At £27,000 we are bid. At 27, 27, would you like to go 5 again? At £27,000 is the bid. At £27,000. Coming back in for the next 5. At 27, are we finished? Are we done? It's your last chance and fair warning then. At £27,000, the bid is here online. At 27,000, then it goes once. At £27,000. Twice. At £27,000. All finished, all done at £27,000. Provisionally with you online at £27,000. Thanking you very much, online bidder. We'll make that phone call and we'll get back in touch as soon as we can. Lot number 20, 1963. Alfa Romeo Spider, and over to you, Steve.
Tom, what a pretty car, as you say, and I shall say it again. A 1963 Alfa Romeo Giulia 1600 Spider. This one, of course, lightly modified to compete in what you call sort of road rallies and regularity trials. The sort of event where instead of racing to the next generation, you have the next destination. Don't race to the next generation. I'm still busy with this one. to the next destination, you have to estimate when you're going to arrive with the help of this timing device, which you have here on the evocative and characterful painted dashboard. This one was sold new in Italy just over 50 years ago, came to the UK in 1994. It's had 3 owners, put it to dry storage in 2012. It's had light use, you can tell that. But it says here, it's got a usability and a charm that makes classic motoring enjoyable. Clap to whoever wrote that little bit of a description here, because that's exactly what a car like this is about. There could be few things in life more enjoyable than spinning along a leafy lane, somewhere where you've never been before, not in too much of a hurry, and just enjoying, Tom, what the Italians call la dolce vita, which is how we say it in Lancashire. I think that's more or less it.
We'll go with it. There we go. The 1963 Alfa Romeo then, where we at to? I'm straight in at 14, 15 and 16,000 pounds we start. At 16,000 pounds. At 16,000, 16,000 is the bid. At 16,000 pounds now, 17 bid, thank you. At 17,000 pounds. 18 bid now, 18. At 18,000 pounds is the bid. At 18,000 on the Alfa here then, at 18,000 pounds. At 18,000, 18,000. I've got no screen again, but 18,000 pounds, you just have to call it out. At 18,000 pounds, we're bid. Perfect. 18,000. 19's bid now. At 19,000 pounds, new bidder entirely this time. At 19,000 pounds is with you. At 19,000, 19,000, endorse it. Welcome. At 19,000 pounds. At 19,000, 19,000. I'll take 500s from this point if you wish to continue. At 19,000 pounds, we're bid. At 19,000, 19,000 for the Alfa Romeo here then. At 19,000 pounds, would you like to come in for another 5? At 19,000, 19,000. At 19,000, are we finished? Are we done? It's your last chance in fair warning with the online bidder here then at 19,000 pounds once. At 19,000 pounds then twice. 5. At 19,005. At 19,500, 19,500. At 19,500 is the bid. Underbidder, would you like to go 20,000? At 19,005. At 19,500 is bid. At 19,520 if you're coming back in now, or anyone else likes to come in the room. At 19,500, are we finished? Are we done? At 19,005. At 19,500 is your last chance in fair warning this time then. We'll count it down at 19,500 for the first time, then at 19,005. For the second time, at 19,500, all finished, all done, 19,500. Your bid online at 19,518,663. Moving down the list, we go to lot number 21 this time. Is the 1995. It's the Porsche 911 this time. It's the Carrera 2. There we go. And over to you, Steve.
Back at the movies, Tom, remember in Mad Max, they said it was the last of the V8 Interceptors. By the way, if you're thinking of watching Mad Max again, bear in mind what company that you're in. It's a lot saucier than I remember it, that first film. Anyway, this is the last of the air-cooled 911, styled by a Brit, Tony Hatter, recognisable for those big bulging rear wheel arches and these heavily slanted ellipsoidal, easy for me to say, headlights. Gone are the days of trailing arms. We've got multi-link suspension at the back, and the flat six is up from about 250 brake horsepower to 275 brake horsepower. We've got aftermarket 18-inch Fuchs, careful, alloy wheels, and they are fitted with a matching set of Michelin Pilot Sport tyres. And of course, it didn't have it as new, but at some point the bloke couldn't resist and he fitted, and who could blame him, an aftermarket whale tail spoiler. Come on, you've got a convertible 911, you've got to have the whale tail. This one's also got a new hood and a new cover on it. It's in fantastic condition. The last of the air-cooled 911s. Pretty damn affordable, I'd say, Tom.
Yes, and it looks great, that spoiler especially there. It looks absolutely brilliant. And I'm in at 12,000, 14,000, 16,000 is where we start, at 16,000 pounds. At 16,000, 16,000 pounds is the bid now at 16. At 16,000 pounds. At 16,000, 16,000, 18's bid. Thank you online, you're in at 18,000 pounds. At 18,000, 18,000. At £18,000 is the bid now at 18,000. I'll take 19 if it helps. At £18,000 is the bid. 19,000, thank you. At £19,000. At 19,000, 19,000. Would you like to come back in for 20? At 19,000 is the bid now at 19. At 19,000, 19,000. At £19,000 is bid. At 19 and 20's bid. At £20,000 with the online bid now at 20. At 20,000, 20,000. Would you like to go 1? At 20,000 is bid. At 20,000 now. At 20,000, 20,000. At 20,000, we'll say 500 next if you wish. At £20,000 is the bid. At 20,000, 20,000. Would anyone like to come in for a small bite now? At 20,500 is the bid. At 20,005, welcome with to you in Lancashire this time. At 20,500 is bid. At 20,005. Would anyone like to go 21? At 20,500 is the bid now at 20,005. 21's back in now at 21. New bidder again at £21,000. At 21,000 is the bid. Would you like to go 21.5 to either of the underbidders now? At £21,000 we're bid. At 21.21. At 21,000 is the bid now at 21.5. 21.5, thanking you. At 21,005. At 21.5. At 21,500 is the bid. 22 back in now. 22. At 22,000 is the bids with you. At £22,000 online bidder now. At £22,000. At 22,000 is the bid. At 22.22, are we finishing done here at £22,000? 22.5. 22.5 is bid. At 22,005. At 22,500 is bid now at 22.5. Would anyone like to go 23? At 22.5. At 22,500 is the bid here then online in Lancashire still. At 22,005. Are we finished? Are we done? At 22.5. At 22,500, the bid then once. At 22,500, the bid then twice. Finished and done, your last chance and fair warning. This time then with the online bidder here in Lancashire at 22,500. That's with you, online bidder, at 22.5 at £22,500. Thank you, online bidder. We'll submit that bid to the vendor for you, and we'll move on down to lot number 22. It's the 1947. It's the Jaguar Mark IV. And over to Steve.
I've seen this car before, Tom, and I've just been absolutely blown away. Not just by the condition of it. The condition, I know for a fact that this car underwent a $50,000 restoration in the States before it was brought back to the UK, it being a 1947 Jaguar Mark IV 3.5 litre saloon. It says here, in excess of 50,000 spent on the restoration. That was, the big restoration was done over in the States, but when it came back to the UK, because of course it's a right hooker, so it started here, went to the States and came back to the UK. The person who brought it back didn't think that the restoration was good enough, and so went on and spent an absolute ton more money. This is an all-steel car with a 3.5 litre engine. You won't find a better one. People say that, they don't mean it. I defy you. Find a better example of the Jaguar Mark IV than this 3.5 litre saloon, and I will eat, I'm not wearing a hat, I will eat my leather jacket. Yeah. So there you go.
Right then, there we go. 1947 Jaguar Mark V. Has anyone got £20,000 to start? Nothing on my book on this one, unfortunately. So £20,000 seems reasonable to me. Anyone interested in starting me off today? 20,000's bid online. Thank you. At 20,000, 20,000. At 20,000, 21. 21's bid. At 21,000 now. Coming back in for the two. At £21,000, we're a bid. 22. Thought that was a bid then, sir. At £22,000. At 22, the bid's online at £22,000. Would you like to go 23? At 22,000 is the bid now at 22. At 22. At £22,000 is bid. At 22, coming back in for 23. 23, I see you. Thank you again. At £23,000, we're bid. At 23. At 23.24. Thank you, online. At £24,000 is the bid now at 24. At 24.24. At 24,000 is the bid with the online bid here at £24,000. At 24.24. At 24,000, would you like to go 25? At 24.25, thank you again. At £25,000 back in now. At 25,000. At 25.25. At £25,000 is the bid now at 25. At 25.25, coming back in for 26. At 25,000 is bid. At 25.25, are we finished? Are we done? At 25.26 bid. Thank you online. You're back in now. At £26,000. Devon bidder, you're in. At 26,000 is the bid. At 26,000 now. At £26,000. At 26, are we finished? Are we done? Would you like to go 27? At 26,000 is bid. At 26,000 now. At 26.26. At 26,000 is the bid. Are we finished? Are we done? It's your last chance in fair warning then. At £26,000. I'll take 27 if you wish to bid. At 26,000. Once. 27 back in. Thank you very much, sir. At £27,000 is the bid now at 27. At 27.27. It's against you online. Are you coming back in for 28? At 27,000 is bid. At 27.27. At £27,000 is the bid now at 27. Are we finished? Are we done? Is your last chance in fair warning. This time we'll submit the bid. At 27, once, twice, finished, done, 27,000. Your bid provisionally, sir. 220 is the paddle number, and that is £22,500 provisionally. 27, sorry, 27, reading the wrong thing. £27,000 provisionally with you there to that paddle number. And lot number 23 this time is the 1970. It's the Evocation Superb. And there's Steve Berry to tell you all about this one.
1975, Barry Sheene at Daytona. For men of a certain age, and damn it, I'm one of those men, it doesn't get more evocative. There was that word, evocation. It doesn't get more evocative than this. Recreating the machine that still, sorry, Carl, sorry, Blackburn Bullet, Carl Fogarty, Barry Sheene, still Britain's best loved motorcycle racer, the bike that he dominated. Now, there was another version of this three-cylinder water-cooled racing motorcycle that was dubbed the Flexi Flyer because the chassis could not cope with the power produced by the engine. This is not a Flexi Flyer. This is the Lowboy chassis based on the road bike chassis. This is from an era when bikes were much more like race bikes, were much more like the road bikes that they were trying to sell. I had to stretch for that one, didn't I? That was the whole point of racing back then. You won on a Sunday, you sold on a Monday. And Barry Sheene certainly sold a lot of motorcycles for Suzuki. This one has been beautifully recreated to evoke that classic bike. It's eligible for Formula 750 racing. It's done a lot of parade laps. It looks fantastic. I've just been talking to a bloke who said, sod that, I'm just going to stick that in my living room and look at it. And why not?
Why not indeed? It looks absolutely great. The livery on it as well is absolutely perfect. And we're straight in at £8,000, £9,000 and £10,000. At 10,000 is the bid. At 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. At £10,000, 11's bid. At £11,000 now. At 11,000 with the online bid here. At £11,000 online bid has it at the minute. At 11,000, 11,000. At 11,000, 11,000, 11,000 is the bid here, 11,000. Let's go 11,500 next. At £11,000. At 11,000, 11,000 with the online bid then at 11. At £11,000, we are bid now at £11,000. Would anyone like to come in for another 500? At £11,000 is the bid. At 11,000, 11,000. Online bid then in Wales at £11,000 is with you at the minute. At £11,000. Anyone like to go 11,500? Looking for you now, online or elsewhere. At 11,500, thank you very much. New bidder this time, West Yorkshire bidder, 11,500 and 12,000 straight back to you in Gwynedd. At 12,000 is bid. At 12,000, 12,000. At 12,000, 12,000 is the bid now. Yorkshire bidder, would you like to go 12,500? At £12,000 is the bid. 12,500, 12,500 and 13 bid. 13,000 now. At £13,000. At 13,000 is the bid. Would you like to go 13,500? Find another that looks this good. At £13,000 is your bid at the minute. At 13,500, thanking you, West Yorkshire. You're back in 14 against you. At £14,000. At 14's bid. At 14,000, 14,000. At £14,000 a bid now. 14,000 is the bid. Online, would you like to go 14,500? Yes, please, they say. 14,500. West Yorkshire bidder, you're in at 14,500. At 14,500, 14,500. At 14,500, next bid's 15 if you're coming back in. At 14,500, are we finished? Are we done? At 14,500. At 14,500, 14,500. At 14,500, I'll tell you what, because it's a motorbike, we're going to take the 250 on this one. Would you like the quarter online? Underbid, you coming back in for the small bike now? At 14,500, it's in West Yorkshire here. At 14,500. At 14,500. Are we finished? Are we done? Last chance. Fair warning then. At £14,500, I'm going to count it down for the underbidder then. At 14,500, it goes once. At 14,500, it goes twice. Finished and done then at 14,500. That's your bid online at 14,500, provisionally 18,675. And then we're going to go down to the next lot. Lot number 24, 1976, the Rolls-Royce Corniche. And look at the beautiful car indeed.
Yes. Tom, just last year I got invited over to the delightful island, the delightful and brave island, of course, of Malta, to judge their classic car and bike show, which is in the beautiful surroundings of the marina in the port of Valletta. I was there with Peter Stevens. Yes, that Peter Stevens, the guy who styled the McLaren F1 amongst many other cars. But just to change things up, they said, hey, Peter, why don't you judge the bikes and let Steve judge the cars? So I walked along the line of cars there on the marina, and I came to one of these. Now, technically, the name of this car, Tom, and it's a bit of a mouthful, are you ready? A Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow Mulliner Park Ward two-door drop-head coupe. Now, that was the name on launch in 1966. By the time we got to 76, when this car was built, they were just calling it the Corniche convertible, which to me makes a lot more sense. I awarded a Corniche convertible the big prize that day. It was quite controversial, but they said to me, you're judging on style and elegance. So I got to the Corniche convertible and said, that's it. I'm going for a drink. Style and elegance. Nothing gets more stylish. Nothing gets more elegant than a Corniche convertible. This one has done 53,000 miles from new in basically in 50 years. And it's got a brown interior. There's no way from getting away from that. Chestnut and brown leather. But look at these seats. They are truly sumptuous. And just look at that dashboard. Style and elegance, I'd say it again. The original owner of this car shipped it to New Zealand for a tour of the North and South Islands and then brought it back. Can you imagine, Tom, having the kind of money to be in a position to do that? Well, let me tell you something. I bet you could if you bought this car tonight. You could sit in that. It's not a seat, it's a throne. You could sit in that throne and drive this stylish, elegant, beautiful Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow two-door drop head coupe or Corniche convertible if you prefer. And you could imagine that you had enough money to take it on your holidays to New Zealand with you. What a car. It's like a stately home on wheels.
The classic there, then look at that, the Corniche, and I'm so glad they called it the Corniche. It's made my job a little bit easier today. Let's start the bidding off with your bid there, 17, 18, and I'll take 20 next. At £18,000, we open up online. At 18,000 is bid. At 18,020, is that coming in? 20's bid now. At 20,002. At £22,000 is the bid on the Corniche here. At £22,000. At 22,000, retro luxury indeed. At just £22,000 is the bid. At 22, 22, 24. At £24,000, thank you very much online. 26. At £26,000. It looks great indeed. Don't miss out on this one, ladies and gentlemen. At 26, 28. At 28, Blackburn's in. At £28,000, welcome to you. At 28,000, I'll tell you what, we'll go 29. At 28,000 is the bid. At 28.28, would you like to come back in for a small one? At 28.29, thanking you. At £29,000 to our Gwenid bidder. At £29,000 we're bid. At 29,000 is the bid now at 29. At 29.29. At 29,000 is bid. Would you like to come in for the 30? At £29,000. Are we finishing done at just £29,000? Are you sure? At 29,000. At 29.29, at 29,000 is the bid. I'll tell you what, we'll go 29.5 if it helps you out. I won't drop the increment again. At 29,000, we'll sell it to the nearest £500 on this one. At 29,000. At 29,000 is bid. At 29.29, are we finished and done then? At £29,000. At 29.29. At 29,000, are we finished? Are we done? Last chance, fair warning then. We'll count you down, underbidder, at £29,000 for the first time. At £29,000 for the second time. Make no mistake, finished done at £29,000. That's your bid online at £29,000. Thanking you very much. £29,000. We do need to make a phone call on that one, but we will get in touch very, very soon. So we're going to move down the list. We go to lot number 25. It's the 2007 Ford Mustang. It's not just any Mustang, it's the Shelby GT500. And what can you tell us about this one, Steve?
All kinds of things, Tom, because as you said, this is no ordinary Mustang. This is not the sort of thing you see on YouTube being spun into a light pole coming out of a Cars and Coffee in Poughkeepsie, Idaho. Oh no, my friend, this is something very special indeed. Did you miss out on the Aston Martin Vanquish V12S earlier on? Well, this is kind of its American cousin, a two-door coupe with, get this, 800 brake horsepower from its 5.4 litre supercharged V8 engine at the crank, 700 at the back wheels. But don't worry, the clutch, a McLeod clutch, is rated up to 1,000 brake horsepower, so you should be all right. 54,000 miles from new. It's a 6-speed manual with that Hurst shifter. Look at that, the evocative, can we see it through the window? Evocative pool ball shifter there. And believe it or not, surprisingly practical in the back. Look at those massive wheels with the Falcon tires, some of the best performance tires you can buy on there. What a car. So much road presence, so much practicality, so much reliability. Such a unique car. You're not going to see another one coming in the opposite direction if you drive it around these parts, I'll tell you that, or indeed anywhere else. This is a rare, desirable car with masses of what I call road presence. Now, you're either up for that or you're not. But if you are up for it, boy, could you bag yourself a bargain, because you're going to be able to buy this car for less than the cost of just a few of the extras that were added to it after it was sold brand new back in 2007.
And it's definitely one monstrous machine.
Tom, it sounds like a distant earthquake when it's fired up.
And who wants to own it? I'm sure there's a few people that do. I've got a very low commission bid. I'm going to start it down. I'm going to go 8, 9, and £10,000. We start at just £10,000 is the bid. At 10,000, 10,000. 11's bid is at 12 coming in. 12,000 now at £12,000. My commission interest is out. I did say it was a low bid. At £12,000 is with you online. At 12,000, £14,000. At £14,000, mean bidding for a mean machine. At £14,000, I'll take 15 if you're coming back in. At £14,000. At 14, 15's bid. At 15,000 now. At 15,000, 15,000. At £15,000 is the bid then at £15,000 on the Mustang here. At £15,000 we're bid. At 15, 16 bid. At 16,000 back in. At 16,000, 16,000. 17's bid. At 17,000 now. At 17,000 Lincolnshire you're in. At £17,000. At 17,000, 17,000. At £17,000 is the bid on the Mustang here. At 17,000 is bid. At 17,000 now, would you like to go 5? At £17,000, we'll take the 500s from this point. At £17,000, 17.5 new bidder this time, and 17.5 and 18 bid. Both bidders in Lincolnshire at £18,000. You might see each other driving by at 18,005. At 18,500 is bid now at 18,005. At 18,005. At 18,500, it's off to Devon at the minute. At 18,005, would you like to go 19? At 18,500 here online at 18,005. 19 if you're coming back to any of the underbidders. At 18,500 is bid. At 18.5, 18.5, are we finished? Are we done? It's your last chance in fair warning this time then with the online bid at 18,500. It goes once. 19 back in. At £19,000 now. At 19,000, 19,000. At £19,000 is the bid here at 19,000. At 19,000, 19,000, would you like to go 500 again? At £19,000 is bid. Shelby GT 500 at just £19,000. At 19,000, 19,000. There's still a few of you thinking about it. Would you like to come in for another 5? At £19,000 is the bid at the minute at 19,000. At 19,000, 19,005. At 19,500 is bid. At 19,005, we're bid now at 19,005. Surely worth one more underbidder. At 19,005, would you like to go £20,000? At 19,500 with the online bid then. It goes at 19,500 once. 20,000 is bid. At 20,000 now. That £20,000 is the bid at 20,000. At 20,000, 20,000. Would you like to come in for another 500 underbidder? At 20,000, 20,000. At £20,000, I'll count you down. At £20,000, it goes once. At £20,000, it goes twice. Finished and done. 20,005, just in the nick of time. I see you, sir. Thanking you very much at 20,005. That's how you make an entrance at 20,005 with the room bidder. At 20,005 online, would you like to come back in? I think it's come back in on that one now. At 20,500 £100 with the room bidder there. 21 is bid, thanking you. At £21,000, they're back in online. At £20,000. At 21,000 is the bid. Screen's back on, thank you. At 21,000, would you like to go 21,500 again, sir? Would you like another £500? At £21,000 is the bid online here. At 21,000 once. At 21,000 twice. Are you finished? Are you done? Online bid at £21,000. Provisionally with you online at 21,1229. Thank you, 1229. And we move down to lot number 26. This time is a 1998. It's the Land Rover Defender, and it's the station wagon restored. Have a good look at this beautiful piece of Land Rover.
It is a beautiful piece of Land Rover, Tom. Car with a story, this one. 1998 Land Rover 90, which of course is the wheelbase. It's the short wheelbase one. 300 3-litre TDI turbo diesel. You know, we're there up to there, all plenty. Station wagon. Now, station wagon is a much abused term in the world of motoring. It originally meant something that they would fetch you from the station to your hotel with your luggage. And that meant you would probably travel in the back. And the problem with traveling in the back of one of these originally was you would be on a foldable bench seat. Aha, but not with this car, because look in the back. There are two seats in the back that are identical, fully adjustable, beautifully upholstered in this Exmoor trim. Look at the paint job on this Land Rover. Have you ever seen a better paint job on one of these? I certainly haven't. The car was sold new in Italy in 98, brought here last year, and then had a no expense spared restoration. You're thinking, why would that be? Well, I think there's a clue. It's left-hand drive, and 1998, it's over 25 years old. Surely tonight, Tom, one of our cousins from across the pond, from either the USA or the great nation of Canada, is going to snap up this eligible car in your market and send it. So it's been made in Britain, lived its life in Italy, restored over here, surely to goodness. Although somebody might just fall in love with it tonight here in the room and buy it, because the standard of the restoration is off the scale.
And it may not be fast, but this thing could literally go anywhere. There's no problem whatsoever for these cars. They're absolute brilliant workhorses.
And in luxury, Tom, because
Definitely.
the interior is exquisite.
There we go. So come on then, ladies and gentlemen, let's start me off. Who's got £15,000 to start? 15,000, surely. We'll go with your bid at £14,000 then. At £14,000, I'm starting now at £14,000. At 14,000, 14,000. At 14,000 is the bid. Would you like to go 15 here? At 14,000, 14,000. At £14,000 we're bid. At 14 bid, now 14. At 14,000, 14,000. On the Land Rover this time, it's the 90 it is as well. At 14,000, 15 bid. New bidder this time at £15,000. At 15,000, 15,000. At 15,000, would you like to go 16? At £15,000 is the bid. At 15,000, 15,000, 16's bid. At 16,000 now. At £16,000 is the bid. At 16,000, 16,000, 17 back in online. At 17,000, 17,000, 18 again. At 18,000 now. At £18,000 is the bid. At 18,000, 18,000. At £18,000 we're bid. Would you like to go 19 online? At 18,000, 18,000. I'll take 500 if it helps you out. At 18,000 coming in for the 5. At 18,000, 18,000, are we finished? Are we done? At 18,000, 18,000, last chance, fair warning then. This time then at £18,000, all finished, all done. 18,500. 18,500 back in. At 18,005. At 18,500 is the bid now at 18,500. Would you like to go 19? At 18,500. Finished and done then. It's your last chance. Fair warning. This time at 18,500. Finished and done 18,500. Provisionally with you, online bidder 1096, £18,500 provisionally. Moving on to, before we go to the next lot number 13, the Ferrari California has now officially sold away at £41,000. And we're going to move down to the next one. This time is lot number 27, 1987. It's the Bentley Turbo R. And this is a nice car.
Tom, I am in love. The Bentley Turbo R. There's a video of me online ranting and raving, surprise, surprise, about my deep love and affection for what is, I think, not just a motor car, but a national treasure, the Bentley Turbo R. Everyone who was anyone had a Bentley Turbo R back in the day, but very few were as good as this one. Look at the color combination. It's exquisite. Deep ocean blue with parchment leather inside. This one's only done 33,000 miles since 1987. It was sold new by Jack Barclay in that London town and was previously owned by a pal of mine, Martin Buckley, the writer, the chap that writes for Classic and Sports Car and has done for over 30 years now. In fact, he's done a test of my pal's Camargue in the latest edition of Classic and Sports Car, a car that I've travelled in many times. And although would I rather have a Camargue than one of these? No, I don't think so. Because the Turbo R doesn't just exude class and sophistication and glamour. It's also a blinking quick car to drive. Remarkably so when you see this vast expanse of beautiful bonnet extending in front of you and the wing B that conjures up images of Tiger Tim Birkin and the Bentley boys doing the business and sticking it to Johnny Foreigner back in the day. The car is in absolutely superb condition. Many of these cars have fallen on hard times because idiots like me who couldn't afford to really run them and look after them properly, bought them and then neglected them. This car has been well cared for from day one. Everything about that is apparent just standing here in front of it. This car has been cherished and looked after, very low mileage, a brilliant color combination, and you very often don't get that. You find these cars in well-used condition, looking a bit long in the tooth, sagging down on one side, needing a bit of love. This car needs no love. This car has had love all the way since it was brand new back in the day, and it's ready for some more, Tom.
And it just has so much character to it. Look at it there, gleaming away under the lights. Unfortunately, I've got nothing on my book on this one, but online's in at £5,000 and £5,500. At 5,500, I'll take 6,000 if you wish to come in. At 5,500 on the Bentley here, 6,000 now. At £6,000 is bid. At 6,000, 6,000 with the online bid here. At £6,000 locally in Cheshire as well. 6,500 against you. At 6,005. At 6,000, 6,500 is bid. Would you like to go 7? At 6,005 is the bid. 7,000 now. Thank you online. At 7,000 is your bid. At 7,000, 7,000 coming in for the 5. At £7,000 is the bid at the minute. 7,500 thanking you. At 7,500 with the online bidder there. At 7,500 and £8,000. At 8,000, 8,000. At £8,000 is the bid now at £8,000. Coming back in for 5. At 8,000, 8,000. At £8,000 with the online bid. At £8,000. At 8,000, 8,000 are we finished and done here? I'll take 8.5. 8.5 bid. Take 9 next at 8,005. At 8,000, 8,500 is the bid now at 8,005. Would you like to go 9 under bidder? At 8,005. At 8,500, are we finished? Are we done? I'll tell you what, I'll take 8,750 if you're nice and quick for me online. You're thinking about it. I can see you hovering. 8,750, thanking you. Lancashire bidder, you're in. At 8,750 is bid. Next bid's 9. 9,000 new bidder at 9,000 pounds. At 9,000, 9,000, 9,000. Would you like to go 250 again? We'll stay in the quarters for you online. 9,250, thanking you. At 9,250, the original bidder's back in. At 9,250 pounds. 9,250, 9,5. At 9,005. At 9,5, 9,5, 9,5. Your bid online at 9,005 and 9,750. At 9,750, we're bid. At 9,750 is the bid now online at 9,750 pounds. 10 bid. At 10,000, 10,000. At 10,000, coming back in for the 250. At 10,000 is bid. At 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. At 10,000 pound is the bid now at 10. Are we finished? Are we done? At 10,000 pounds, take one more 250 if you're coming back in. You're thinking about it. At 10,000 pounds is the bid. Are we finished? Are we done? We'll count you down online. At 10,000 pounds. 10,250. Thank you very much. Waving away. At 10,250 is bid. It was all online. My eyes were elsewhere. At 10,250 down seated. At 10,250, 10,250. 10,5's in online. At 10,005. 750. At 10,005's the online bid. At 10,000, 10,005. At 10,500, are we finished? Are we done? Under bidder online, would you like to go 10,750 or you, sir? Would you like to come back in for one more? At 10,500, then we'll count you down. At 10,500 pounds with the online bid here, once. 10,750 bid just first, sir. I just seen the flash come in. 10,750 your bid. Would you like to go 11 quickly? 11,000 pounds. Gentleman's bid at 11,000. You're both out now online. Gentleman's bid here at 11,000 pounds. Thank you very much, sir. At 11,250. 11,250 is back online. Essex is in this time. 11,250. Would you like 11,5? Shakes the head. Essex bidder at the minute at 11,250 pounds. I think this is the first time we've seen you on this lot today. At 11,250, making an entrance right at the end. At 11,250, are you finished? Are you done? At 11,250, we'll count you down then. At 11,250, it goes once. At 11,250, it goes twice. Finished and done then with the online bid with you in Essex at 11,250 pounds. Finished and done. Your bid online provisionally 18671. 18671. Thank you very much. And that was for 11,250 provisionally. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, lot number 28. No need to go over to Steve for this one. Registration number 1VHU. Look at that for a registration plate. Let's get it sold today and straight away online in at £3,000 is bid. At 3,000, let's go in the 500s. We'll go into the nearest 500 on these. At 3,000 is bid. Online bid at £3,000. At 3,000, 3,000, 3,000. 1VHU at just £3,000. At 3,000, 3,000, 3,000. Are you finished? Are you done? Last chance in fair warning. Would you like to go 3,500? 3,500 you do. 3,500. 4,000 now. At 4,000, two bidders jumping in fast there. At £4,000. At 4,005. At 4,500. 5,000 bid. At 5,000, 5,000 with you in the West Midlands. At 5,000, 5,000. At £5,000 is the bid now. At £5,000, are we finished? Are we done? At 5,000, 5,005. At 5,500 is bid. At 5,000, 5,005. At 5,500, are we finished? Are we done? At 5,005, I'll take 750 if you're nice and quick. At 5,005, would you like the call to bite? At 5,500, are we finished? Are we done? Last chance, 5,750, you're back in. New bidder, in fact. Derbyshire, 5,750. 6,000 bid. At 6,000, 6,000. Would you like to go 250 again? At 6,000, 6,000, 6,000. At £6,000 is the bid now at 6. Are we finished? 6,250, we're not. At 6,250, Derbyshire, you're in. At £6,250 is the bid. At 6,250 for the first time with you, online bidder then at £6,250. For the second time then at £6,250, 65, 65, 6,750 again. At 6,750 is bid. At 6,750 is the bid now at 6,750. 7,000, 7,000 now. At 7,000, 7,000. At £7,000. Underbidder, would you like to go 250? Yes, you do. Thanking you. At 7,250. Derbyshire bidder, you're back in. At 7,250. Next bid, 7.5 if you want to come back in Liverpool. At £7,250 is the bid. Are we finished? Are we done? Last chance. Fair warning then. This time at £7,250. Finishing done 7,250. That's your bid online at £7,250. To bidder number is 7108. 7108. Thank you very much, online bidder there. And we're going to move down. We got another registration for you. This time it's lot number 29. It's the KOJ1 there. The KOJ1. 3,000 starts us off again online at £3,000. Let's go 3.5. At £3,000 is bid. At 3,000, 3,000 is the bid now at 3. At 3,000, 3,000. At 3,000 is the bid. Are we finishing done at £3,000? At 3,000, 3,000. Last chance in fair warning this time then at 3. At 3,000, 3,000 goes once. 3.5 bid. 3.5. 4,000 straight back in. At £4,000 is the bid now at 4. At 4,000, 4,000, 4,000. Go 5 again. At £4,000 is the bid. Would you like to go for 5? 4.5, thanking you online. New bidder again at 4.5 and 5,000. Original bidders back in now at £5,000 with you in the West Midlands at £5,000. 5.5 against you at 5,005. At 5,000, 5,500 is bid now at 5,005. At 5,500, are you finished? Are you done? At 5,500, I'll take the 750 now. Would you like the 250 bike? At 5,005. At 5,000, 5,500 is bid. Are we finished? Are we done? It's your last chance and fair warning this time then 5,750 bid. Somewhere in the United Kingdom at £5,750, the bid is yours. At 5,750 bid. 6,000 back in. At 6,000, 6,000, 6,000. At £6,000 is the bid now at 6. Would you like to go 250? Yes, please, they say. At 6,250 is bid. At 6,000, 6,250 the bid now 6,250. Would you like to go 6.5? At 6,250 it goes once. It goes twice. It's finished. It's done. Online. It's with you. 6.5. At 6,005, sneaking in under the wire there at 6,005. At 6,000, 6,500 is bid. Underbid is 6,750 back in. Thanking you. At 6,750. Next bid 7,000 if you're coming back in now. At 6,750 is the bid. At 6,750, 6,750. Are we finishing done then? At 6,750. We'll count you down online once. At 6,750. Twice. At 6,750. All finished, all done. £6,750. That's your bid online at £6,750. It is provisionally with you. And I am going to just jot down number 184, 184, 184, 86. 184, 86. Thanking you. Right then, next one over to Mr. Stephen Berry to introduce lot number 13, 1989 Porsche 911.
Tom, let's talk about rare cars and let's talk about the 1989 Porsche 911 Carrera 3.2 Targa SSE, the Super Sport. You could have had a 930 Turbo, the poster car of the 80s. Tom, you were too young to remember it, but once upon a time, every British high street had a shop called Athena, and they sold 3 posters. There was a chimpanzee sitting in a toilet bowl. There was a very attractive woman scratching her bare backside with a tennis racket in the other hand, and there was a white Porsche 930 with the big front spoiler and the impact bumpers and the giant whale tail. Well, this car looks like that car, but it's not that car. It's 50 horsepower down on the turbo, making it, in regular driving, much easier to live with, because fantastic as the idea of the 930 Turbo was, it made it a lot harder to drive on account of the fact that if you got things wrong, it would just swap ends, and nobody wants that. So this car gave you the looks of that. You also got the 16-inch Fuchs alloys. You got bigger brake pistons on, bigger calipers on the front, rather. So you got the look of it, and you got the brakes and everything, but you didn't get all that power and all that expense on the insurance. And so this should have been a lot more popular than it was. Like we said, we think there's either 15 or 18 in existence. This one has done 90,000 miles from new. It's just had a new MOT. There's a little bit of light commissioning to be done on it somewhere, but find another one. You won't. Well, you might, but not many.
Yeah, such a great looking Porsche indeed. 1989, 911 Carrera there then. Who's got £30,000 to start me off? Let's go low on this one. No interest on my book. £30,000. Coming in? 30 bid. Thank you online. At 30,000, 30,000. At 30,000, go 2 next. At £30,000. Cheap little lot here at the minute. At £32,000. At 32, 32. 34. At £34,000 is the bid now online with you at £34,000. At 34, 34. Underbidder, would you like to go 36? At £34,000 is the bid at the minute with the online bid at 34. At 34,000 now. At 34, 34, are you finished? Are you done? At £34,000 coming in for the 6. At 34, 34. I'll take 35 if it helps. At £34,000. 35. Devon bidder, Crediton, you're in at £35,000. At 35, 35. At £35,000 with the bidder in Devon at the minute. At £35,000 is bid. At 35, 35. At £35,000. At 35, 35, would you like to go 36? At 35, are we finished? Coming in for 36. 36 you are. New bidder again at £36,000. Little money here at just £36,000 for the 911. 3.2. 37's bid. At 37, 37 it goes on. At £37,000. At 37, 37. At 37,000 is the bid now at 37. At 37, 37, are we finished? Are we done? Would you like to come in for 38? At 37,000 is the bid. At 37, 37. At £37,000, are you finished and done online? It's your last chance. It's your fair warning. 38's bid. Devon bidder, you're back in. At £38,000. At 38 bid. At £38,000 at the minute with you in Devon at £38,000. At 38 bid. At 38, 38. Would you like to go 39? At 38,000, are you finished? Are you done? It's your last chance and fair warning this time then. I'll submit the bid to the vendor at 38,000 once. At 39. New bidder, Herefordshire, welcome in at £39,000. At 39,000, Devon, the bid is against you now. At 39 bid. At 39, 39. At £39,000 and 40 back to Devon, thanking you. At £40,000, the bid is with you online. At 40,000, 41. At 41, 41. 42's bid. At 42, 42. At £42,000, Devon bidder, you're in. Hertfordshire, would you like to come for one more? At £42,000 is the bid now, 42. At 42,000 is the bid. Would you like to go 43? Are you finished? Are you done? At £42,000, make no mistake, last chance. Fair warning then, we're all finished, we're done. At 32,000 then with the online bidder in Devon for the first time. £32,000 then for the second time. Finished and done then at 42,000. 43,000 is bid. At 43, 43. Herefordshire, you're back in at £43,000. At 43, 43, 44. Thanking you, Devon, for your fast bid. Straight back in now at £44,000. At 44,000. At £44,000 is the bid now at 44. At £44,000 here with the online bid. At 44, 44. Are you finished? Are you done? At £44,000 then, once. At £44,000 then, twice. Finished and done. We'll submit the bid then off to 45. Back in at 45, 46. At 46, 46,000 now. At 46,000 is the bid now at £46,000. At £46,000 to the Devon bidder still in. At £46,000, it's currently going your way. At 46,000 once. At £46,000 then twice. Make no mistake, underbidder, it's now or never. At £46,000, finished and done at £46,000, and provisionally with you online at £46,000, with you in Devon at £46,000, and that is to bidder number 18639. 18639. Thank you very much. Lot number 31. There's only two rides home, ladies and gentlemen, I think. There you go. Lot number 31 is the 1980. It's the Ford Escort Cosworth. Look at this in the green. And over to you, Steve.
Tom, we've had some remarkable cars tonight, but this is the most remarkable. You can keep your Ferraris and your Porsches and your Aston Martins, although they are very lovely. I don't mean that. I'm just trying to make a point. This is a blue-collar supercar. This is a 1980 Ford Escort Cosworth YB engine track-style road legal show car with 380 brake horsepower and weighing less than a ton. That's all very well and good, but if you've got 380 brake horsepower, you better be able to deal with it. And if you had this car, you could, because you've also got a 48-inch Atlas axle ZF limited slip differential Watts adjustable linkage, turreted GPR4 link boxes, gas coilovers, Cosworth calipers, a high-pressure fuel pump, battery located into the boot, GRP4 tank and firewall. There's just 3 pages of the best stuff that you can get for a Ford car from the likes of GRP4, Rick's Engineering, and Willwood. This is a remarkable motor car. And like I say, although we've had all kinds of exotica through the sale tonight, I wonder if a bit of twisty road here in Cheshire, this wouldn't blow them all away, my friend. I think it would. What a car.
What a car indeed. There we go. 1980 Ford Escort Cosworth. What's it worth, ladies and gentlemen? Who's got £20,000 to start? Surely. 20,000 to kick it off today. 20,000. 20's bid. Thank you online. Not surprised. I'll take twos on this one. At £20,000 is bid. At 20,000, 20,000, 22. 22's bid. At 22, 24 if you're coming back in. At 22,000 is the bid now at 22. 24's bid. At 24, 26. At 26,000 now. At 26, 26. At 26,000 is the bid now at £26,000. At 26,000. At 26, 26, would you like 28? 28 you do. At £28,000 is the bid now at 28,000. At 28, 28. At 28,000, are you finished and done? Would you like to go again? I'll take 29 if it helps anyone out. At 28,000 at the minute. At 28,000 is bid. 29. 29's bid now at £29,000. At 29, 29. At 29,000 is the bid now at £29,000. Would you like to go for 30 back in online? At 29, 29. At £29,000 is the bid. 30 bid now online, thanking you, at £30,000. At 30,000, 30,000. At 30,000, 1980s Ford Escort here then at £30,000. At 30,000, 30,000, would you like to go one? At 30,000, 30,000, the bid is currently here online. At 30,000, 30,000. Are you sure? At 30,000, finishing done then. Last chance in fair warning. This time it goes. At 30,000 once. At 30,000 twice. All finished. All done at £30,000. And that's your bid online at 30,000. 1040 at £30,000. Provisionally with you, online bidder. Moving on to the last, just before we go on to the last lot of the day, lot number 25, the Ford Mustang GT500, sold away at £22,000. Lot number 24, the Rolls-Royce Corniche, sold away at £29,000. Thanking you very much to all the hard work on the telephones and to the vendors there. We've got another few cars sold for you, and we're going to go to the last ride home, the 1964, and it's the Jaguar E-Type 3.8 Coupe, and over to you, Steve.
Tom, in the late summer of 1964, two fantastic things came into the world. Me and this wonderful Jaguar E-Type. I think I was just raving about the Escort, and I do like it very much, but this is my favorite. And there's a reason for that. This is a car with a story. This is a car with history. This is a car in the same family and the same ownership for 60 years. It's a car with painted wire wheels, which is what they didn't have shiny, they had painted wire wheels. It's in the best color for an E-Type coupe. And of course, we all know that coupes are better looking than roadsters when it comes to E-Type, breaking the rule that roadsters look better. No, the coupe looks better. It's got the red interior, the old English white. It's a car that's been looked after, that's been cherished. We've got a collection of invoices from Martin Roby and Jaguar House. We have copies of the V5 dealing its ownership details. There's a lot of history. We think that this number plate, 828 WRL, was with the car from new. A car, one of the greatest cars of all time. With the 3.8, it's a manual. It's an early car. It's everything you want with an E-Type. In a family, part of that family. What a unique opportunity. And what a beautiful car, Tom.
There we go then. Let's find out what it's worth, shall we, Steve? Online is straight in at 20,000. 22. I'm going to have to go 24 with me, though. At 24 is my commission bidder. 26. 26,000 now. 26,000. 28. 30 is my bid. At 30,000, come back in for the 2. At £30,000 with my commission bidder at the minute at £30,000. At 30,000, 32. You'll be glad to know online, my commission interest is out now at 32,000. I'll take 33 now from this point. At 32,000 is bid. At 32, 32. 33. At £33,000 is with you in West Sussex at the minute. At £33,000. At 33, 33. At £33,000, would you like to go 34? At 33,000 is bid. I'll tell you what, it's the last ride home of the day. We'll go in quarters on this one. So I'll take the 250s. At £33,000 is bid online at the minute. Would you like to go in for another 250? At £33,000. At 33, 33. At £33,000 is the bid now. At 33,000, would you like to come in on the telephone? At £33,000. 33,250. Thanking you. On Tim's telephone, at 33,250 were bid. Next bid's 33.5 if you're coming back in. At 33,250, 33.5. At 33,005. At 33,500 were bid. At 33.5, 33,750. At 33,750 is the bid now at 33,750. Online, would you like to go 34? At 33,750 on Tim's telephone, are you finished and done? At 33, 34. At 34,250. At 34,250 is bid. At 34,250, 34.5 is back in now, Tim. At 30,500. At 34,500 is bid. Thanking you. We'll stay there now. At £35,000. Go 35.5 if we can. At £35,000 is the bid. They've upped the increment on the telephone for you online. Would you like to come back in for 35.5? At £35,000, are you sure? Are you done? 35.5. At 35,500 is bid. At 35.5. At 35,500. 36. Telephones back in. Thank you on the telephone. You're in at £36,000. At £36,000. 36.5. And ladies and gentlemen, we're on sale from this point. It's in the market. It's going to be sold. At 36,500 with the West Sussex bidder now. At 36,005. 37, thank you, Tim. At £37,000 is the bid. At 37.37. 37.5. At 37,500 is bid. 38 back in. At £38,000. Tim's telephone is back in at £38,000. We're looking for you now online. Would you like to go again at £38,000? I've got to hurry you. It's on sale. It's going to go. At £38,000, are you finished? Are you done? Hammers up for the first time. For the second time, we sell on the telephone at 38.5 bid, just in time. The dramatic ending to the day at 38,500. You're back in online. New bidder entirely as well at 38,500 in Cheshire somewhere at 38, 39, 39. Telephone, you're back in at £39,000 at 39.39. At £39,000, are you finished and done online? At £39,000, the hammer's up then. Last chance. Fair warning, 5. 39.5's back in at 39,005. At 39.5 is bid. Would you like to go 40? At 39.5 and 40 back in on the telephone. Thanking you very much on the phone. At £40,000, the bid is currently with you at 40,005. Straight back in though at 40,005. At 40,500 is the bid. At 40,005. At 40,005. 41's back in on the telephone. At £41,000, you coming back in for the 5 now online. We look for you. At 41,005, straight back in. Thank you for your fast bid there. At 41,005 is an online bid. At 41,005. At 41,5. 42 if you're coming back in. We've come this far. At 41,500 with the online bid. At 41,500. 42 back in. Thank you, telephone bidder. At £42,000. At 42,000 now. At 42.42. At £42,000. I'm going to put the hammer up. If you're coming back in online, make it nice and quick. Got to be fair to the telephone. They've been in most of the way. At 42,000 once. At 42.5. At 42.5 is bid. At 42,005. At 42,500. Would you like to go 43 on the phone? 43 bid. At 43, telephones in now at 43. At 43,000 coming in for 43.5. At 43.43. Are we finished? Are we done? It's your last chance in the fair warning. Hammers up. Last lot of the day. At £43,000 with you on the telephone. At £43,000 looking for you online. 43.5. At 43,005. Someone's going to be driving this home this week. At £43,500. Who will it be? At 43,500 locally in Cheshire now. At 43,000, 44, thank you, telephone bidder back in. At £44,000. At 44,000 is the bid now at £44,000. You coming back in for one more. Hammers up then. Last chance. Fair warning. It's going to sell once. twice. Finishing done then. Hammer time now at £44,000. Sold on the telephone at £44,000. Thank you very much to our telephone bidder there then. And I will just hit telephone and we'll get the bar number in a minute. There we go. That is it today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all very, very much for bidding. Just a few things to run through. Next auctions, timed auctions, close every Thursday. So if you've got a car that you can't quite get to us or can't quite get to Hampshire, if you give Sam a call in the office, she'll help you out. You can get your car online, sold by an auction from anywhere in the United Kingdom. Then we go to Barron's Manor Park South, 29th of November. Next auction from here up north is the 5th and 6th of December, our pre-Christmas sale. We have many lots already coming in, so please do keep an eye out on social media for all of these. If you wish to consign, do get in touch with us as early as possible. The reason I say that is because it gives us time for marketing, advertising, gets us the best opportunity to get your car sold, whether that's pre-auction, during the auction, or after the auction. Just please do get in touch. Results from today's auction will be online by end of play Friday. A few little thank yous. A thank you to Anthony Reid for coming in. A thank you to everyone that come in and bid online, all of the people that joined us on YouTube. We've been Manor Park Classics. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you.